American Comics, Multiverse of Madness. Alex accidentally traveled to the ruin universe of the Marvel Comics. In this world, everything is hopeless. There are no superheroes here. The things that should have given heroes superpowers, killed them. After Peter Parker was bitten by a spider, he did not become Spider-Man. Instead, he was infected with the disease and died on the street. After finally escaping from this universe, Alex was horrified to find that the multiverse was already collapsing. What awaited him would be one apocalyptic universe after another. Chapter 1. The End of Superheroes. If this is a nightmare, then I'd better wake up quickly. Alex walked on Spadina Avenue in New York like a walking zombie. The dazzling sunshine shone on Alex's body, but it could not dispel the gloom in his heart. Everything was out of tune. Alex was not from this world. He has also forgotten how he came to this world. It was like he had a hangover. When he opened his eyes, he just found himself lying on the side street with a bunch of homeless people. It has been a month since he came to this world. As he collected more and more information, Alex's heart fell deeper and deeper into despair. He tightened the hold on the shoulder bag, as if the contents in the bag could bring him some comfort. A sense of security has been out of fashion for a long time. For Alex, the bag contained all of his wealth. The bag was picked up, and so were the contents. After coming to this world, Alex was actually very excited at first. Transmigration only existed in novels or animations. If he could experience it personally, he would be ahead of 99.9999% of the people in the world in his previous life. Especially when Alex saw the word Stark in the newspaper, Alex became even more excited. Stark Alex, who has watched many Marvel shows, was very familiar with this surname. Tony Stark, Iron Man, no one else in New York can have this surname except him. The name was plastered on the front page of the Weekly World Inquiry. But when Alex looked down, the title that came into view made his breath stop for a second. The separatist group Avengers was destroyed. Tony Stark, the leader of the terrorist organization, was killed in action. What? Alex's eyelids were twitching, and his hands holding the newspaper were trembling slightly. He couldn't believe what he saw. Are the Avengers a separatist group? Tony Stark turned into a terrorist? And, he's dead. Alex didn't have time to think too much about it. He continued to look down, trying to find more clues. The incident happened in California many days ago. With the last Avengers Quinjet being hit head-on by a Patriot missile, the separatist organization Avengers has been eliminated. The Quinjet was carrying various veterans of the Avengers. Their positions was exposed when they evacuated their stronghold, which also caused them to not survive the attack, and all of them died. Tony Stark was originally a scientific genius with hundreds of billions of dollars, but after he was injured by a grenade, he made a metal suit. He changed his name to Iron Man and assembled a group of people. The separatists created the terrorist organization Avengers and began to rebel against the current president of the USA, President X. It is reported that the people in the Avengers all possessed unique skills and were extremely talented people in various fields. This include Guru Stephen Strange, scientist Hank Pym and his wife, Thor who claims to be the reincarnation of Thor, etc. But at this moment, the organization that attempted to subvert President X's totalitarian rule has long since died, and all that's left is some small groups. 4 days later, Zhang Yi saw the execution scene of Clint Barton, codenamed Hawkeye, on the street. He was betrayed on the way to escape and his identity was exposed. Even though he had excellent fighting skills and strong combat effectiveness, he was exhausted when faced with a steady stream of soldiers rushing up to him. Bang! With the sound of a gunshot, Clint Barton, who was kneeling on the street, was shot in the head. He was still wearing the purple suit that represented his identity. Blood flowed, and the people watching around screamed. They were very excited to see such a wonderful scene. After all, this is the Avenger who has given President X a headache for a long time. Such people were rare, let alone an execution of one. As for why these Avengers risked their lives to launch a revolution and overthrow President Alex, who was standing in the crowd watching all this, couldn't understand. Why? What is happening in this world? Why did Professor X, the founder of the X-Men, become a tyrant? Why didn't Iron Man's suit detected the Patriot missile being fired at them? Why didn't Doctor Strange used magic? Why did Thor get killed by a missile while wielding that useless hammer? Alex stared at Hawkeye's body, unable to calm down for a long time. He just felt that everything was so strange and scary. At this moment, he didn't even care about the nausea he felt when he saw a dead person for the first time. What kind of world have I come to? In the next few days, Alex continued to wander, and based on the memories of his previous life in his mind, he began to search for clues in this broken world. Since he is an illegal immigrant and has no money, Alex can only join the team of beggars to prevent himself from starving to death. However, this status also had great benefits because there were many people on the team of scavengers carrying information about this world that many ordinary people didn't know. For example, in the previous attack on the Avengers, it was the former Avengers member Scarlet Witch who betrayed them. In order to protect herself, this woman betrayed the organization and told President X a lot of the Avengers' intelligence and strongholds. I'm afraid Tony Stark would never have imagined that the culprit that caused the Avengers' annihilation came from within, right? The porn star known as Enchantress killed her producer, Namor, because he was a king of Atlantis who deceived her feelings. This matter made the headline on all tabloids that night and was also talked about by beggars. It turns out that Washington, D.C., has now become a no-management jurisdiction, filled with various gangs. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is the most chaotic place in the world. Alex was originally going to take a look, but several beggars stopped him and told Alex that it was hell, which was even scarier than the real hell. If he didn't want to die in a gang conflict, or be eaten by those mutant monsters, it is best to stay away from it. Don't go there in this life, and don't even think about it. This is a world comparable to a nightmare. All the superheroes and supervillains in Alex's memory have changed. They have become a chapter with the most painful ending. The methods that originally enabled them to obtain superpowers, became the main culprit in their fall. Like a curse, in this world, all superpowered heroes had no good ending, even those aliens. Akira didn't forget that last night a beggar told him a story about how the Kree interstellar army was bombed into space junk by nuclear bombs. After the discussion ended, Alex stopped in front of a house. There was a "closed for auction" sign on the door of the house. Alex paused, took out 2 pieces of wire from his bag, put them into the door lock, fiddled with them a few times, and the door opened. No one will take care of the houses that have been closed for auction until they are sold. This also gives many beggars an opportunity. After all, no one wants to sleep in the street when they can sleep in a house. The previous owner of this house was a man named Ben Parker. His poor nephew messed up a chemical experiment and was bitten by an irradiated spider. His nephew suffered from a terrible disease, and finally his body was found on the street after causing the death of his family. Opening the door, Alex quickly entered the room. He looked outside while closing the door without leaving any trace. After making sure that there was no one following him outside, he locked the door. "You're back, how's the harvest?" As soon as the door was closed, a figure appeared next to Alex. In just the blink of an eye, Alex didn't notice how he appeared, but Alex didn't show any surprise. Obviously, it wasn't the first time he had done this. "I told you, don't use your super speed casually anymore." Alex pushed the man away and walked towards the living room without looking back. "I'm so bored. You go out for several days at a time. Besides, I'm in this house and I shouldn't be discovered." After hearing this, Alex turned around and looked directly at the silver-haired man in front of him, and spoke. "Really? Have you forgotten how you were captured before? Pietro, what do you want to lose this time, your left leg or your right leg? Isn't losing your left hand enough to deter you?" Chapter 2. Ruins. Yes, the silver-haired man in front of him was one of the famous mutant in Alex's memory, Quicksilver. But at this moment, his appearance was miserable. His hair had begun to become tangled due to not being combed for too long, and he had a beard on his face. No one would have guessed that he was just a 19-year-old boy. The most surprising thing was the empty sleeve on his right side. His right arm had been cut off by someone, and the injury was not bandaged properly. He just did it to stop the bleeding, which also caused his right arm to not be able to properly recover. Even if his wounds were healed at super speed, they still looked extremely hideous. Alex met Pietro a week ago. At that time, he was fighting for food with a dog. He had been hungry for a long time. The high speed brought with it a high metabolism. If he hadn't met Alex, he would have starved to death. If he fell unconscious, other beggars will not care about his life or death. Pietro was wary of Alex at first, but after getting familiar with him, he slowly let go of his wariness. He told Alex some of his experiences, such as how he was imprisoned in the mutant prison by President X and how he escaped from it. The first time he tried to escape from prison, his arm was chopped off when he was captured. Alex took out a loaf of bread and 2 bottles of beer from the bag. He kept 1 bottle for himself, then handed the things to Pietro, and then continued. Listen, Pietro, I don't know how powerful President X is. I know that as soon as you use your powers, he might detect it. I don't want to wake up and find myself surrounded by a bunch of people. I believe you've escaped with great difficulty, you don't want to be captured again, do you? Hearing this, Pietro also thought of his previous encounters. He didn't speak and sat quietly. He stood down, opened the beer with one hand and took a sip. Seeing this, Alex also sighed, this damn world, while not giving a way for people with superpowers to survive, it also doesn't give a way for ordinary people to survive. In the context of the economic crisis, all countries have been greatly affected. USA is naturally no exception, which is why President X wants to destroy the Avengers as soon as possible. Prices are skyrocketing, many people are homeless, and every state is in chaos. It is estimated that a world war will happen again soon. But now, the world has begun to linger, and it is just asking who will fire the first shot to put the nail in the world's coffin. There are rumors that the world is going to end, that the end is coming, and only those mutant lunatics can survive it. Indeed, in this world, the vast majority of superpowers do not actually have superpowers, such as the old man who claims to be the reincarnation of Thor, and there is no vibranium deposits in Wakanda. Black Panther is just the name of a gangster. As for the magic, Alex searched for 3 days and 3 nights in New York but could not find the legendary No. 177A Black Street. That place was supposed to be the New York Sanctuary. 177A in this world is a nightclub that is about to go bankrupt. As for the superhero Iron Fist, who inherited the power of Chi, Alex couldn't find any information about him. Perhaps he had long perished in some accident, just like the lawyer Matt Murdock, who was killed in a car crash. It seemed that this world might not have any so-called supernatural abilities at all. There were only ordinary people who died in various accidents and those mutant monsters with genetic mutations. However, even those who did obtain superpowers weren't that powerful. Instead, genetic mutations brought them uncontrollable disasters rather than blessings. Magneto's superpower had turned into a passive skill, where he constantly emitted magnetic fields. To counteract this, he had to wear a demagnetization device. But a decade ago, an accident occurred at the airport. An agent accidentally damaged his demagnetization device, causing several planes to be attracted to his magnetic field, killing Magneto on the spot. Similarly, Mystique could transform into anyone but would also be influenced by their personality, leading to multiple personality disorders. Any slight mistake could result in her dying on the streets. Thinking of this, Alex glanced at Pietro across from him. Perhaps he was the only one who was somewhat fortunate. Quicksilver's abilities included superspeed and enhanced cognitive abilities. In the comics, Quicksilver's superpower was hard to define. He even had the ability to slow down time around him while increasing his own speed, much like the scene in the movie where Quicksilver saves people while listening to music. He could slow down everything around him and perform rescues. But here, Pietro didn't have such great capabilities. He was merely a mutant with super speed. Alex even doubted if Pietro could dodge bullets with his speed. What's the situation outside? After a moment of silence, Pietro asked. War is imminent. Many people have started jumping off buildings in groups. President X has been quiet, probably planning something big. The gang activities across the nation are also increasing. And the Avengers? They're all dead. Even the old man, who claimed to be the reincarnation of Thor, was killed. The rest, if they're not dead, are in hiding. I don't have the means to find them. If I keep gathering their information, I'll be targeted. Do you think we can really succeed? Pietro asked with some concern. At his age, he should have been in school, but now he was a fugitive. We can, Alex said firmly. If we don't believe in ourselves, we won't achieve anything. I heard there's an uprising in Texas, and there's unrest at the Mexican border. Maybe this is our chance. If we succeed, we can leave this damned world. But only if what you told me is true. What I said is true. I wouldn't lie to you, Pietro retorted immediately, clearly frustrated by Alex's mistrust. Alex didn't say much more. He knew that the chances of Pietro lying to him were almost zero because this was something Pietro had discovered unintentionally, and there was no way he could know what it was. Quicksilver had been imprisoned for theft. He didn't just steal from businessmen and the wealthy. Perhaps because of his youthful recklessness or his belief that he couldn't fail, he boldly broke into President X's secret chamber, intending to steal the treasures inside. That secret chamber, personally created by President X, housed numerous secret treasures and trophies from his victories over the Avengers. However, perhaps because there was no supernatural energy in this world, most of those treasures were just grand-sounding names without practical use. For example, there was the Darkhold obtained from the Inquisition of Heretics and the Book of the Vishanti taken from Doctor Strange. But those were basically all decorative and had no practical application, like the ramblings of a madman. No one could learn any spells from them. But among Pietro's descriptions, one item in the secret chamber caught Alex's attention. It was a small yellow box, about the size of a mobile phone, exquisitely crafted. It was clearly not made on Earth. Interestingly, inside the box was a small orange round cookie with hands and feet that could only laugh. No one knew what it was, but Alex did. That wasn't just any orange cookie, it was Miss Minutes, a product of the TVA, Time Variance Authority. And that phone-like device was likely a time controller. In the TV series Loki, the TVA was an organization created by Kang to maintain the sacred timeline and prevent multiversal wars. They had powerful abilities, including traveling between different universes and pruning timelines to prevent paradoxes. This was evident from the drawer full of Infinity Stones in the first season of Loki. Although this organization didn't appear often in the comics and had few appearances in major events, serving mostly as background filler, this was great news for Alex. Although he didn't know why this world had changed so drastically, as long as he could get that time controller, he could escape this apocalyptic wasteland. Alex didn't think he could survive the upcoming World War III. Finishing his beer, Alex looked at Pietro, who had already finished his bread, and said, "Get ready. We're moving out tonight." Chapter 3. The Plan. I can't sleep. Pietro tossed and turned on the sofa. If it were the old him, he would have continued to wallow in despair, blaming all the bad things in his life on fate. But after hearing the information Alex had shared with him, he couldn't calm down. He turned over, curling up as he spoke. "Alex, can you tell me more about those multiverse stories?" Alex glanced at him and couldn't help but shake his head. For people of this world, the more they understood the world, the more hopeless they became. It was hard to imagine that Pietro, at such a young age, had already endured such a tragic life. After a moment of contemplation, Alex began to speak. "Let me tell you about one of the biggest crises the Avengers faced after their formation. It was called Age of Ultron. But before this, I'll tell you about an event from one of the multiverses, where that universe was still reeling from the collapse of SHIELD after it was infiltrated by Hydra. After the alien invasion of New York, Hydra agents secretly took Loki's scepter. At the time, no one knew that the gem embedded in the scepter was the Mind Stone, one of the 6 legendary Infinity Stones. Hydra then began extensive human experiments, hoping to unlock the secrets of the Mind Stone's power. Ultimately, only a pair of twins survived the experiment. Their names were Wanda and Pietro, another universe's version of you. But Hydra didn't know that your powers weren't granted by the Mind Stone, they were inherent, with the Mind Stone merely acting as a catalyst. Pietro listened quietly, not surprised that Alex mentioned his name. It wasn't the first time Alex had told him such stories, and Pietro had gradually accepted that in most parallel universes, he had a sister named Wanda. However, in this world, Pietro had no relation to the Scarlet Witch who betrayed the Avengers. In Pietro's memory, that person never existed. Alex continued his story, describing how Tony Stark, driven by anxiety, created Ultron and how the final battle between Ultron's army and the Avengers unfolded. To protect a child, Hawkeye reluctantly returned to the battlefield. But Ultron wasn't going to let him go. Ultron piloted a jet straight towards Hawkeye and the child, bullets raining down. Just when Hawkeye thought he was going to die, a silver figure sped by. The next moment, Hawkeye felt himself being moved by a force. When he came to, he and the boy had been moved behind cover, while outside, Quicksilver's body was riddled with bullets. "You didn't see that coming." Quicksilver's tone was still light-hearted. Those were his last words in that universe. Hearing this, Pietro couldn't help but smile. "That does sound like something I'd do. If that were my end, it wouldn't be a bad way to go. Maybe. At least he died with purpose, like a real hero, unlike me. I'm just waiting to die in some dark alley or get caught and thrown back into a mutant prison, Losing my freedom and never seeing the light of day again, Pietro murmured. Looking at Quicksilver, Alex said, get some sleep. I'll get you out of here. Night fell. Alex and Pietro drove along the coastal highway, heading for their destination, the mutant prison in Texas. They needed to cross New Jersey and Washington, D.C. before reaching Texas. After escaping from prison, Quicksilver had ran all the way to New York, almost traversing the entire country. Initially, he planned to keep running out of the country, but due to his superpowers, he nearly starved to death along the way. Alex was driving while Pietro slept in the trunk. Given his sensitive status, if anyone recognized him, he'd be as good as dead. Moreover, he couldn't use his superpowers carelessly. If President X detected them, it would spell disaster for both of them. After some discussion, they decided to steal a nearby car and money. In another world, Alex would never have done this, as it would surely draw the attention of various authorities. But in this world, the global order was on the brink of collapse. The country was plagued by internal and external troubles, and if not for fear of President X, it would have fallen apart long ago. In such a chaotic environment, street murders were commonplace. Stealing a car? No one but the owner would care. As he drove, Alex kept calculating his next moves. Trying to steal from President X's secret chamber was too dangerous, as Quicksilver's fate had demonstrated. The most critical issue was Professor X's bug-like superpowers. If he were to lock onto them and control them, all their plans would be foiled. Although Beast didn't build a Cerebro for President X in this world, President X was still very powerful, especially against someone as ordinary as Alex. So, they needed a big distraction to divert President X's attention, making him too busy to focus on them. Unfortunately, in this world, the Avengers were all dead, and there were no other heroes left. If there were, they could serve as bait, increasing their chances of success. To create a significant distraction, they needed to choose the right method. A gang riot? Too small. Border unrest? Still too small. They needed something bigger, something earth-shattering, preferably something that could trigger the next world war. Only then would President X, who hadn't shown himself in ages, come out in person to handle the situation. However, achieving this wouldn't be easy. Initially, Alex considered the Kree prisoners. After being hit by nuclear bombs, they were imprisoned by President X, thousands of them confined to a radioactive desert. If anyone held a grudge against President X and had the ability to seek revenge, the Kree would be the first on the list. Honestly, Alex found the Kree's fate quite tragic. Not just in this universe, but in most, nuclear bombs seem to be incredibly destructive. Yet, despite their immense power, nuclear bombs appeared to be Earth's exclusive trump card. Other planets, no matter how advanced their technology, whether they had star fleets or laser guns, couldn't seem to create nuclear bombs. It was as if each planet had its own technology tree, and nuclear bombs were a unique skill of Earth, possessing a universal one-of-a-kind skill. Take the Kree, for example. They came with the intention of wiping out Earth's civilization, but the next moment, they were exposed to the radiation from Galactus's corpse. Their portal closed, their cloaking failed, and the entire fleet was revealed within Earth's range. They couldn't run, hide, or defend. They could only watch as countless nuclear warheads approached. While releasing the Kree would certainly draw President X's attention, Alex eventually abandoned this plan. For one, the Kree had been exposed to radiation for so long that their current combat abilities were questionable. Moreover, that desolate place was inaccessible without protective gear, and it was heavily guarded. Even if the Kree were released, they'd likely be quickly subdued, which wasn't what Alex wanted. After discussing this with Pietro, Alex decided to target the mutant prison, where over 100 mutants were suffering daily in their cells. Maybe mutant abilities were a form of evolution, but to ordinary people, mutants were ticking time bombs. If these bombs were released and they all had a common enemy, President X, it would certainly cause him a lot of trouble to subdue all of them. Chapter 4. Nick Fury. Late at night, Washington, D.C. was still brightly lit and bustling. After the presidential office was moved out from D.C., the nearby gangs occupied the area. Perhaps everyone wanted to experience the grandeur of the president's palace. Dozens of gangs rooted themselves here, with various conflicts breaking out daily. Here, the law held no sway, and all order had collapsed. It was a haven for criminals and a cradle for evil, filled with countless addicts and lowlifes. Compared to this place, Gotham City seemed more sunny. Initially, President X intended to manage Washington, but the Avengers continuously occupied his attention, preventing him from sending troops to suppress the area. By the time he turned his focus here, it had already become an ungovernable black zone. Alex drove through the area, gripping the steering wheel with one hand and clutching a gun tightly in the other. Honestly, living through 2 lifetimes might have given Alex immense confidence, making him less socially anxious than in his past life. However, the fear and tension from uncontrolled chaos was a feeling that would never diminish. Upon entering the city, the number of pedestrians increased. Yet, looking around, Alex felt like he had arrived in hell. Many were emaciated, some with rolling eyes leaning against walls, and the streets were littered with garbage and vomit, making Alex frown deeply. If not for the crowd, Alex might have stepped on the gas and sped through here without slowing down. Alex's arrival drew some attention, but no one made any overt moves, which was a small relief. After scouting the surroundings, Alex turned the car into a small alley. He opened the door, quickly shouldered his bag, and then opened the trunk to let Pietro out. "Put on your clothes. This place can swallow you whole. I need to handle some business, you have to ensure my safety." "Don't worry, I'll protect you," Pietro said, wearing a fisherman's hat to hide his silver hair and draping a long coat over himself. He nodded seriously at Alex, promising. "There are many mutants here. With their cover, using your powers won't draw President X's attention. But still, be cautious. Remember, your speed isn't invincible." Alex reminded Pietro, and then the two walked out of the alley, one after the other. Texas borders Mexico and is a chaotic place, too far from New York. Alex needed to get everything ready quickly. On this route, no place was better for acquiring fuel and weapons than Washington, D.C. Merging into the crowd, Alex felt the chaos more viscerally, the unpleasant smells constantly assaulting his nose, making his stomach churn. Passing a bar, a commotion broke out. 2 burly men dragged a gaunt man out and threw him into the filth. The man quickly scrambled up, stumbling towards the 2 burly men, rasping in a hoarse voice, "Please, just a little more. I'll get the money, I promise, please." One of the burly men sneered, stepping back in disgust, and then pulled out a gun, pressing it to the man's forehead. "Wade, this isn't the first time it happened. You shouldn't have stolen from my boss." "No, I didn't mean to, please." The man called Wade trembled, stuttering. "Lost your smart mouth?" "Ha!" The burly man didn't waste any more time, pulling the trigger and shooting Wade. He then fired a few more shots, seemingly venting some frustration. No one in the surrounding crowd intervened, as if it had nothing to do with them, just like watching a movie. This reminded Alex of Hawkeye's execution scene. "What's wrong?" Pietro couldn't help but ask. "Nothing." Alex shook his head and headed towards the bar. In a place like this, bars were the best for gathering information and, compared to the streets, were actually safer. The gangs would ensure no one caused trouble inside. Stepping over Wade's body, Alex and Pietro entered the bar. The 2 burly men at the entrance continued their conversation, paying little attention to Alex and Pietro. Discussing which street had the sexiest women seemed more important to them. Inside, the bar was dark and noisy, but relatively clean compared to the streets. At least, Alex didn't smell anything that made him want to vomit. "A new face, what can I get you?" As Alex was looking for a seat, a girl wearing green top and a radiant smile approached him. She had red hair and a great figure, but her strong perfume made Alex frown. "A quiet spot and 2 drinks." "Of course, darling. Follow me." The girl blew a kiss and led Alex and Pietro to a corner, one of the few quiet spots, though there was a man lying on the ground nearby, his condition unknown. "Drinks will be right up. Do you need any other services?" "Just $20. The girl leaned forward, showing off her figure. Ignoring the gesture, Alex asked a seemingly unrelated question. "What's your name?" The girl was taken aback but thought he might have some kind of fetish. She smiled, "You can call me Jean, or you can give me a name." "Never mind." Alex waved her off. "I'll call you if I need anything." Annoyed but silent, the girl walked away. Pietro couldn't help but ask, "Do you know that girl?" "Sort of, but she's not the person I remember." "This just solidifies our plan." Alex picked up the drink, hesitated, and put it back down. Although thirsty, considering the environment, Alex didn't dare consume anything, unsure if it was spiked. You said we'd get some gear here. How do we start? Who do we find? Pietro seemed uneasy, scanning the surroundings while speaking. We don't need to look, someone will come to us. Alex said calmly. Sure enough, after turning down several women's offers, a one-eyed white man approached. He sat in front of Alex, unceremoniously taking the untouched drink and downing it. Here for business too? Alex asked, eyeing the man. I just didn't want to waste the drinks. I know you're here for business. Tell me, maybe I can help. How do you know? Simple. You're not here for fun, just sitting quietly, not even drinking. You must be someone important. I may be one-eyed, but I read people well. Interesting. You're right. Let's talk somewhere private. Alex felt he was halfway to his goal, getting up to follow the man to the bar's back door. On the way, Alex learned the man's name, Nick Fury. He didn't seem to keep it a secret. Unlike the black Nick Fury everyone knew from his past life, this Nick Fury was a white man and a member of Captain America's Howling Commandos. Surprisingly, he had also fallen to such a state. Chapter 5. The Damned World. The alley behind the bar was dark, dark enough to conceal all manner of evil. The stench of blood hung in the air, like a permanent fixture. Alex knew that this place was where the bar's gang dealt with their enemies. However, it was also a good place to talk. At least no one would disturb them. Apart from the rats feasting on the dead, there were no other living creatures in this alley. I need some supplies and info. Alex said directly, wasting no time. Haha, I like your straightforwardness. Tell me what you need, and I'll give you the best price, Nick Fury said, lighting a cigarette. 8 barrels of gasoline, 2 shotguns and submachine guns, 2,000 rounds of ammo each, and information about the other Avengers. Nick Fury's expression remained unchanged until he heard the word Avengers. His face stiffened, and he stared intently at Alex, his cigarette-holding hand trembled slightly. The atmosphere grew tense, the air seemed to thicken, with a faint metallic taste mingling in it. After a moment, Nick Fury forced a dry laugh and pointed a finger at Alex. It looks like you've done your homework on me. But you're not here for me. So what's your objective? It has nothing to do with you. I'll pay you handsomely. Haha, handsomely? In this damned world, do you think I don't know the value of money? Everything is over. The whole world is doomed. Alex's words seemed to touch a nerve deep within Nick Fury. He burst into loud laughter, his whole body shaking. Charles, that freak, used his damn abilities to control all the senators. He doesn't understand anything. He's just an obsessed madman. Look at this land beneath our feet. The so-called American dream? It's all bullshit. The Avengers failed, and we failed too. No one will survive this calamity, only those mutant freaks will continue to scrape by. Sir, calm down. Calm down? We killed the captain with a Patriot missile. Nick Fury roared, his voice low, like a wounded beast. He had no other way to show his fangs to his enemies but to howl. I said, you better calm down. Alex pulled out a pistol from his coat. Staring at the dark muzzle, Nick Fury fell silent. The surroundings were so quiet that only Nick Fury's rough breathing could be heard, like that of an old, broken man. After a pause, Nick Fury finally spoke. I don't know what you're planning, but I can help you. I can give you all the information you need and the weapons too. This world can't get any worse. With that, he took out a key. This is to my safe house in the suburbs. It has everything you need. What about the Avengers information? Alex didn't take the key but continued to ask. I haven't seen the Captain or Stark in a long time, not until I heard of their deaths. Nick Fury leaned against the wall and slowly sat down. Unlike the others in the Avengers, my relationship with the Captain was the deepest. He taught me how to be a soldier. The Howling Commandos. Pietro interjected. Nick Fury looked up at Pietro and nodded. Yes, the Captain chose me out of many and changed me. We were the key to victory in that war. We faced countless life and death situations together. Sometimes, we even had to eat the flesh of men to survive. You ate human flesh? Yeah, the Captain taught me the ways of the world, all for the sake of victory. Alex tightened his grip on the gun. It seemed like this world really wasn't worth saving. There was no justice, no evil, just a bunch of lunatics. President X was one, and so were the Avengers. What I want to know is, besides mutants, are there any other supernatural forces in this world? People, items, even blood sacrifices requiring thousands of lives. Anything? Alex asked the question he most wanted to understand. Nick Fury laughed. Haha, you're a lunatic too. Just like that woman who claimed she killed her producer with magic. You just need to answer my question. Don't you understand? All that crap about Thor's cult or strange magic is just a bunch of crap made by lunatics who couldn't survive and tried to deceive the world. They ended up deceiving themselves. Understand? In this world, the only thing you can trust is the gun in your hand. Hearing Nick Fury's words, Alex's heart grew heavier. It seemed there really were no supernatural elements in this world. No Asgard, no Camartage. Without these places, there was no need to search for supernatural objects. Perhaps this world didn't even have the Infinity Stones, let alone the Ultimate Nullifier or the Cosmic Cube. Tell me, Nick, how did you end up like this? I remember seeing your name on the wanted list. So, you fought against President X too. At this, Nick Fury lowered his head, his once burly frame now seemed haggard. No, I'm just a failure. President X is unbeatable. You don't understand, and you won't understand. When you face him, he will turn your brain to mush, making you endure hellish pain. All your secrets will be exposed to him. Your resistance is nothing more than an ant's struggle. Nick Fury hugged his head, his eye bloodshot and his body trembled uncontrollably. That's it. It was hard to imagine that a darkened Professor X was so formidable that made Nick Fury this fearful. The President X of this world was weaker compared to other universes. His ability should be telepathy, right? As a mutant, I don't believe he has no weaknesses. Look at other mutants, they all have some flaws in their abilities. Like that guy who turned himself into a statue. Can President X's abilities be so perfect without any flaws? Nick Fury remained silent for a while, seemingly deep in thought. He rubbed his hands together and then spoke. Not exactly. I remember that he wasn't like this at first. Later, I heard he absorbed too many memories, which gave him multiple personalities, turning him into a monster. Sometimes he's polite, sometimes he curses in anger, and some people even saw him naked, driving his wheelchair down the street. I see. Alex nodded thoughtfully. So where is he now? He hasn't shown up since the Avengers were wiped out. Where could he be? I don't know. He's always been secretive. Nick Fury shivered, shaking his head. Seeing this, Alex sighed. All right, thanks for your help, Nick. What about my... Nick Fury looked up, about to say something, but he froze. Alex was pointing the pistol straight at his forehead. Without any hesitation, Alex pulled the trigger. The muffled gunshot was quickly swallowed by the darkness, unnoticed by anyone, as if nothing had happened. The result was just another corpse in the alley. Chapter 6. The next stop. Why? Looking at Nick Fury's corpse, whose face was still frozen in disbelief, Pietro couldn't help but ask, he was also against President X. He could have helped us, right? Alex didn't answer immediately. He took several deep breaths. Although he had seen countless corpses since coming to this world, this was the first time he had personally killed someone. After a pause, Alex put the safety back on his gun and spoke, just like that prostitute working at the bar, he's no longer the hero I remember. The Nick Fury I remember was a tenacious warrior, a defender with the determination to protect mankind. He glanced at Fury's body on the ground. But this guy is just a scared stray dog, terrified of President X. Every time I mentioned President X, his eyes were filled with deep fear. Do you think such a person could really help us? Are you worried that he might betray us out of fear of President X? Pietro quickly grasped the key point. Maybe, but I can't afford to take that chance. It's for our safety, Alex said as he took the key to the safe house from the corpse and turned to face Pietro. My goal has always been same, to survive at all costs. Hearing this, Pietro looked at Alex's serious and resolute face. He couldn't help but recall the pain he had experienced in this world since awakening his mutant powers. Perhaps, in this environment, freedom and life were luxuries for everyone. Even surviving seemed so difficult. With this in mind, Pietro took a deep breath and slowly nodded. I understand. I understand. In the outskirts of Washington, Alex arrived unimpeded at the safe house Nick Fury had mentioned. Fury was right. This place indeed had everything Alex needed. Not only were there various supplies, but also an abundance of weapons and equipment, which greatly boosted Alex's confidence. Through long-term intelligence gathering and this personal conversation with Fury, Alex had now confirmed that this world was likely one of the Marvel multiverses, specifically a catastrophic multiverse, a universe on the brink of destruction. Here, the superhumans had all died in various accidents, and the overall combat power of the universe was significantly reduced. This was evident from the invincible planet Devourer corpse floating near Mars. Iron Man's Mark suits hadn't undergone dozens of updates, and Hank Pym and his wife hadn't fully explored quantum realms and Pym particles. These heroes, who were supposed to be powerful, would be taken down with just a gun or missile. But this was good news for Alex. After all, he was just an ordinary person. If President X in this world had powers comparable to the main universe or the movie universe, resisting him would be much more difficult. Although Alex had read many Marvel movies and comics in his previous life, he hadn't seen everything. In the late 20th century, Marvel released many short comics, and some universe comics were discontinued for various reasons. So Alex didn't know what this universe was. It only took 5 minutes to collect all the supplies in the safe house, thanks to Pietro's speed. Although there were many things in the safe house, Alex couldn't take everything at once. He could only select useful items, mostly high-calorie foods to sustain Pietro. Notably, Alex found an Iron Man suit here, but it wasn't the high-tech suit he remembered. It looked very primitive, with no artificial intelligence inside. It was hard to imagine fighting in this bulky armor, he felt he'd be a sitting duck. However, there were gains. Alex dismantled the left arm of the suit. The left hand had the ability to fire energy beams, a simplified version of the palm cannon. The forearm's energy shield could absorb various energies for replenishment, providing some self-defense capability. After preparing everything, Alex took out his notebook from his bag. It was an old, worn book filled with clippings from newspapers and notes, representing all of Alex's findings. Flipping through the pages, Alex found what he was looking for. The page was filled with information and a newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Emma Frost's Benevolence, the largest welfare home for children in the state opens." The picture showed a woman with white hair, dressed in a snow-white ceremonial robe, her charming face beaming with a warm smile as she waved to reporters at the welfare home entrance. From this report and the photo, anyone would feel goodwill towards Emma Frost. After all, anyone willing to build a welfare home in such chaotic times wasn't just kind, they were practically a saint. But Alex didn't believe it. Emma Frost, the White Queen and one of the founders of the Hellfire Club, couldn't be so untainted in this world. There must be hidden motives. This was Alex's next destination. Telepathy, like President X's, wasn't invincible. In Alex's memory, Magneto had a helmet that could block all telepathy. Though Magneto was dead in this world, it didn't mean the helmet was gone. After coming to this world, Alex had scoured newspapers to better understand it. In one newspaper photo, he saw a man wearing a helmet, named Sebastian Shaw. In other universes, Sebastian Shaw was a notorious villain, founder of the Hellfire Club. But here, he was a British Parliament member and a presidential candidate. After President X took office, he disappeared, last seen near the welfare home Emma established. This connection was too suspicious to ignore. If it were anyone else wearing a helmet, Alex might take it as a coincidence. But not Sebastian Shaw, especially given his history of opposing Charles for the presidency. It's only natural he'd protect himself from telepathy. To increase his chances against President X, Alex had to get that helmet. Most people in this world were abnormal, Alex couldn't risk being unprepared. In the Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe comic, Deadpool's realization that his world was a comic led to brain death of Charles after he scanned his mind. That was a sane Charles. Here, Charles was a lunatic. This woman is beautiful. So, this is our next stop, Pietro said, peering over. Yes, no time to rest. We need to move quickly, Alex replied, closing his notebook. Chapter 7. The White Queen. The car drove freely on the deserted road, with vast plains on either side. Alex left a crack in the window, allowing the fresh air to pour in, making him take deep breaths of fresh air. On the second day after leaving Washington, D.C., Alex was surprised to find that he seemed to have traveled from hell directly to heaven. The journey was smooth, with no chaos, no smell of blood, and no gang wars. This left Alex somewhat astonished, and his always tense mind relaxed a bit. Later tonight, when Alex and Pietro were taking a break halfway, they witnessed a motorcyclist in a circus performing his final extreme sport with his life on the line. The man poured a whole barrel of gasoline over his head, then sat on his motorcycle. Without any hesitation, he lit the fire with a lighter. In an instant, his head was engulfed in flames, and with the roar of the motorcycle, he sped off. From a distance, Alex could hear the piercing screams. Pietro was stunned, his mouth agape for a long time. Even he had never seen such a horrifying act. The man's face's skin quickly burned from the flames, leaving only a skull wrapped in fire, like a ghost rider from hell, riding across the land. From the poster at the circus entrance, Alex quickly found the man's name, Johnny Blaze. Ignoring what happened next, Johnny Blaze's physical transformation sounded an alarm for Alex. No matter how beautiful the world seemed, hidden beneath it were unsalvageable depravity and despair. "Wake up, we're almost there." Seeing the town gradually appear in the night, Alex patted Pietro next to him. "So soon? How long did I sleep?" Pietro yawned. "Long enough, it'll be dawn soon." Alex parked the car in a public parking lot. "Rest up, and when the orphanage opens, remember to follow the plan." "Got it. I'll fuel up first." Pietro responded and then grabbed a big bag of donuts from the back seat. To be honest, Alex didn't want to have too much contact with the heroes of this world because he didn't know them at all. No one could tell whether these lunatics would end up helping or killing him. Pietro was fine. He was just a tragic teenager whose mind hadn't been irreparably polluted by this world yet. But others were unpredictable. Alex couldn't gauge how twisted the minds of those struggling under President X's oppression had become. In the morning, the small town gradually came to life. The townspeople continued their daily routines, mundane but far better compared to other places. This was undoubtedly one of the few sanctuaries left in the USA. Alex patted his face, put on a professional smile, and walked straight into the orphanage. This orphanage was personally funded by Emma. It belonged to the Church of the Next Generation, which was also founded by Emma. Alex didn't know much about the church, only that it was created to better nurture the next generation, with most of its followers being pregnant women. The orphanage was established to help homeless or even abandoned children. It was said that Emma invested half of her fortune in building this orphanage, which earned her the best reputation in USA through national newspapers. Almost everyone associated Emma with kindness, but Alex had already prepared for the worst. He couldn't believe there was such a genuinely kind person in this damned world. "Hello, how can we help you?" A nun quickly stopped Alex as he entered the orphanage. Seeing the nun's smile and enthusiasm, Alex also smiled. "Hello, I'm a reporter from the New York Times. I'm here to see Ms. Emma Frost, hoping she would agree to an interview." "The New York Times?" The nun was taken aback but quickly responded. The New York Times was no small paper, its publications could be seen nationwide. Similarly, not everyone could be featured in it. Emma had only appeared once. "Oh, for an interview, hey? Follow me." Alex followed the nun into the orphanage. He had to admit, the environment here was really good, and the construction style was similar to a monastery. The courtyard was filled with plants, birds chirped in the background, and walking here improved Alex's mood. "Please wait here, I'll go inform her." The nun bowed slightly to Alex and left after he nodded. After a while, a woman in a white priestess robe slowly approached with the nun. Seeing this, Alex couldn't help but feel nervous. He quickly pinched himself, then stood up and, holding the camera that Pietro somehow acquired, smiled at Emma. "Miss Frost, may I take a picture of you now? You are absolutely stunning." "Of course." Emma did not refuse this proactive man's request. She stopped and smiled slightly. Emma's voice was charming, with a strong allure. Combined with her face, Alex believed that most men couldn't resist such a beautiful woman. Wearing a pure white priestess robe, she looked so pure. This combination of an angel's purity and a devil's seduction in one person made people want to approach her and become her prisoner. Click. The camera made a crisp sound, and Alex quickly put it down, walking up to Emma Frost. "Thank you for your generosity. I believe this photo will be on the front page of the next issue unless my editor is blind. Oh, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Alexander. You can call me Alex. I'm a reporter who joined the New York Times last week. Would you like to see my press credentials?" Alex spoke very quickly. He understood that when facing someone with telepathic abilities, he must not let the other party's mind actively invade his. The best way was to take the initiative, constantly asking questions or changing topics, making the other party's thoughts follow his lead. No need, I believe you. And there's no need to be nervous. Emma clearly sensed the nervousness of the young man in front of her, but she didn't mind. Hearing this, Alex couldn't help but shrug and make a funny face. Oh, sorry, Ms. Frost, but you're making it hard for me. I believe no man in the world could remain calm in the face of your stunning beauty. If someone can, I would doubt his sexual orientation. Alex's words drew laughter from Emma and the nun. Emma then waved the nun away and walked to Alex's side with her long legs. Just call me Emma. Sit down, I'll take your interview. Thank you so much. Honestly, I should mark today as my lucky day. Alex quickly sat opposite Emma, opened his notebook, and put on a somewhat silly smile. Meanwhile, on the other side of the orphanage. With his super speed, Quicksilver entered the orphanage without anyone noticing. The nuns seemed to be ordinary people, and the orphanage had plenty of blind spots in its surveillance, making his infiltration effortless. Hidden in the shadows, Pietro checked his watch. He knew Alex must have started the plan, and it was time for him to act. Suddenly, a new message popped up. Pietro looked down, it was from Alex. Too quiet, find the children. Chapter 8. Already dead? Yes, the children. Pietro furrowed his brow. Seeing Alex's message, he finally realized what was wrong. This orphanage was unnervingly quiet. Ever since entering the Church of the Next Generation's orphanage, Pietro's nerves had been on high alert. Unlike Alex, he was born and raised in this world and knew better how deranged mutants like himself could be. Although it had been a long time since anyone saw Emma use her mutant powers, and rumors claimed she had abandoned them to fully commit to the Church, neither Alex nor Pietro believed it. To them, mutant abilities were less a gift and more a curse. Curses are not something one can easily abandon. With his heightened senses, Pietro felt a peculiar magnetic field or some extremely unusual psychic energy the moment he stepped into the orphanage. This psychic energy was imperceptible to ordinary people but detectable to mutants with innate psychic abilities like the White Queen or President X. Pietro could also sense it when running at high speed, because his brain being in a heightened state. In a flash of silver, Pietro appeared in the orphanage's cafeteria. Not here. Before finishing his sentence, Pietro vanished again, leaving only a hoarse echo. As he darted through the orphanage, Pietro's expression grew more frustrated. The psychic feedback intensified. Initially, it was just a fleeting sensation, but as he ran, the energy seemed to come alive and began to focus on him. Not in the dorms either. Damn it! Pietro, with an instinctive aversion, tried to shut out the vague psychic energy, focusing entirely on searching for the children. However, he soon realized he was already enveloped in that eerie energy. In his high-speed state, the world appeared almost still. Usually, the only sound in Pietro's ears was the rush of wind. But now, he was horrified to find everything around him changing. A substance, like mud, was floating in mid-air. It was constantly bubbling out of the white mist, like asphalt boiling under high heat. It was everywhere and growing. When Pietro tried to look at it, it seemed non-existent. It was something that continuously emerged and vanished, like Schrödinger's cat. Pietro didn't want to notice it or tried to ignore its presence, but the energy quickly spread and enveloped him. It felt like being touched by slime or some other amorphous creature, sending a shiver down Pietro's spine. He couldn't fathom how it managed to catch him in his high-speed state. The next moment, a murmur, like someone talking in their sleep, began to echo in Pietro's ears, drifting around him. It was a voice devoid of logic or useful information, filling Pietro with agitation, unease, and other negative emotions. Not in the chapel either. Damn, is today not Sunday? Why is the choir room empty? Honestly, if not for the hope Alex had given him, Pietro would have run to the top of the Himalayas by now, as far away as possible from here. Since being captured by President X and sent to the mutant prison, Pietro hadn't encountered such psychic energy. But he swore the energy he faced now, though not as strong as President X's, was far more bizarre. Clearly, this was a more twisted, chaotic entity, bringing fear, delusions, and claustrophobia, attempting to drive people insane. Ordinary people might not perceive it, but over time, the influence would strip away the most basic sense of order from their minds, replacing it with distortion and chaos when they stepped into the orphanage's domain. Maybe I need a different approach. Pietro gave up on stopping to rest. After searching almost every room in the orphanage, he found no trace of any children. The only clue left was... Closing his eyes, Pietro suppressed his nausea and tried to actively connect with the psychic energy. Come on, show me where you all are. Meanwhile, Alex's conversation with Emma was becoming more lively. In any world, conversing with a charming, intelligent woman was a pleasant experience. However, Alex remained vigilant. The moment he felt any psychic intrusion, he was ready to draw the gun hidden in his sleeve and take down the beautiful woman before him. Where were we? Oh yes, this incredible monastery. Emma, I remember you spent your entire fortune to build this place. It's admirable. Your quote in the newspaper, "Everything we do is for the next generation," stuck with me. I couldn't sleep before coming here. Your presence is awe-inspiring. I even read all the reports about you. Interviewing you is my honor. Everyone is special, Alex. To me, you're a very interesting journalist. Would you like to stay for lunch after the interview? Lunch? Yes, of course, I'd love to have lunch with you. I'd do anything for you. Alex's face wore a sincere smile, like a fan meeting their idol, eager but hesitant to get too close. Suddenly, Alex looked up at Emma, curiosity in his eyes. Emma, where are the children? What? Emma was momentarily taken aback, not expecting the sudden shift in topic. This is an orphanage, right? Where are the children? Alex blinked, adding, I want to interview them too. My editor gave me a big section for this story. The children, yes, they should be in morning class now. Sister Lisa takes them there every morning. Emma's smile didn't waver. To confirm this, a faint sound of recitation drifted from a distant classroom. Alex turned towards the direction of the classroom. Would you like to see them? The children would love to meet you. Emma tilted her head, inviting him kindly. Listening to her, Alex's smile slowly faded, replaced by a stern, cold expression. No need. As he spoke, Alex raised his left hand. Instantly, a particle beam gathered in his palm. Pong! Crack! The repulsor blast struck Emma square on her chest. Its sound was followed by the sound of shattering glass. As she fell to the ground, Alex turned, hiding the Iron Man gauntlet in his sleeve, and looked at the collapsed Emma. You deceived me, Emma. It was a dried corpse, with a palm-sized hole in its chest from the blast. It had been dead for some time, its clothes decayed and emitting a faint stench of rot. I guess you are Sister Lisa. Staring at the corpse for a moment, Alex slowly pulled out the photo he had taken earlier. The picture now showed two lifeless, hollow-eyed corpses. Chapter 9. Still alive. Pietro was running through the monastery. He could feel his destination was getting closer, as the demonic whispers in his ears were becoming more and more intense. The nauseating sensation also made it hard for Pietro to keep his speed up. Eventually, he had to stop, leaning against a wall and taking deep breaths. Ha-huff, ha-huff. Like a drowning man rescued from the water, Quicksilver greedily inhaled the air. He never wanted to experience that again, he felt he would have thrown up if he hadn't stopped in time. Suppressing the urge to vomit, Pietro knew he wasn't in a safe place yet. It looks like this is it. He looked up and saw a well sealed with iron chains. According to the orphanage's map, this place should be the backyard, located in the southwest corner of the entire complex. The west led to the monastery, and the south was a forested area where people rarely ventured. As he moved towards the well, Pietro couldn't help but feel nervous. The surroundings were desolate, with fallen leaves everywhere and several broken statues standing on the ground. A chilly wind made Pietro shiver. Damn it, I'm starting to regret this. Alex didn't mention how creepy this place was. Muttering to himself, Pietro spat on the ground and then, seeming to make up his mind, used his rapidly vibrating left hand to break the chain sealing the well before jumping in. The well and its walls were quite large, enough to accommodate 4 people. In free fall, a normal person would have turned into a pulp upon hitting the bottom, but not Pietro. In his high-speed state, he could control his falling speed. Quickly, Pietro tapped the wall with his foot, landing perfectly at the bottom of the well. It seems Alex was right. A normal orphanage wouldn't spend so much money. Most of the funds must have gone into constructing these underground facilities. Touching the tunnel walls, Pietro furrowed his brow. It was hard to imagine what Emma's intentions were, and what happened to the missing children? This orphanage was far from the benevolent institution the newspapers claimed it to be, it harbored untold horrors. But that had little to do with him. Pietro just wanted to get the helmet Alex mentioned and get out of this unsettling place. He crouched down, readying himself for a sprint. In the next moment, his figure vanished. Honestly, Pietro's speed was now too fast for the naked eye to catch, but it wasn't his full speed. In fact, it was less than half his running speed. As a speedster, arm movement was crucial for balance while running. Humans evolved to lose their tails because their arms could better maintain balance. In a speedster's state, arm movement was even more critical. But without his right arm, Pietro couldn't run as fast. It was harder to maintain balance, and without the arm's momentum, he couldn't achieve his top speed. However, Pietro used to run so fast that it strained his heart. He once suspected that if he kept running at that speed, his heart would eventually burst from the pressure. Now, he couldn't run that fast anymore. Whether this was good or bad, he didn't know. Though the orphanage's underground tunnels were deep, Pietro quickly passed through them, reaching a more spacious area. Suddenly, Pietro's brain felt a sharp pain, as if someone had stabbed it with a needle. He clutched his head, coming to an abrupt halt, causing him to nearly crashing into the wall. Opening his eyes slowly, Pietro saw stars. He shook his head vigorously, trying to clear the dizziness and nausea, attempting to regain his clarity. Evidently, he had forgotten that he was now at the source of those psychic energies. Running at high speed here made his brain a target for those energies. When Pietro finally regained his composure, he started observing his surroundings. The smell of blood in the air made his hair stand on end, he readied himself to flee at any moment. "What the hell is this place?" Pietro whispered, looking around cautiously. He found himself in a dimly lit corridor, resembling a prison, with doors on both sides spaced every 2 meters. It reminded Pietro of the mutant prison he was once in. He tiptoed to the door of one of the rooms. It was a steel door with vertical bars on the window. Standing on tiptoe, Pietro peeked through the gaps. Inside was a rectangular room less than 7 square meters, with only a small bed. On the bed sat a child, looking no more than 4 or 5 years old, but with their back to Pietro, he couldn't see their face. Hesitating for a moment, Pietro decided against interacting with the child. In such a terrifying environment, he didn't want to draw attention. Besides, the child sitting with their back to him was too scary. What if they turned around suddenly? His goal was the helmet Alex mentioned, not to figure out what Emma was doing here or what happened to these children. With that thought, Pietro turned to leave. As he turned, he froze, his entire body immobilized by shock and his eyes widening in disbelief. At the entrance of the corridor stood a woman, silently watching Pietro. No one knew when she appeared or how long she had been there. When Pietro noticed her, his heart nearly jumped out of his chest. She was a woman with white hair and a stunningly beautiful face, watching Pietro with an enigmatic expression. Pietro instantly recognized her, the builder of this orphanage, Emma Frost. "I didn't expect a little mouse to sneak in. It seems I've been too complacent over the years." Emma licked her lips, her voice was melodious like a nightingale, but to Pietro, it sounded like the whisper of death. "Aren't you supposed to be giving an interview?" Pietro tried to accelerate but was stopped by the stabbing pain in his head. He cried out in agony. Clutching his head, Pietro felt as if his brain was being torn apart. In such a state, he couldn't even think of using his speed, let alone run. "Humph! Did you think I wouldn't notice you? My children sensed your presence the moment you entered my domain." "A speedster is quite rare," Emma said, her voice soft. From behind her, 2 girls, each about 4 or 5 years old, emerged. "They are psychic too?" Pietro asked, enduring the pain. The little girls beside Emma were expressionless, their eyes rolled back to reveal only the whites. It was hard to believe these were children at the age of joy, they looked like broken dolls. "What have you done?" Pietro yelled through gritted teeth. "I've achieved what the Creator couldn't." Emma's eyes widened, and she grinned, her beautiful face contorted into a grimace. She stroked the girls' heads and continued. "This world is on the brink of catastrophe. Only mutants will survive. I'm simply helping those lowly beings evolve, just like my church of the next generation. Everything we do is for the sake of the next generation." As she spoke, Emma bent down and rubbed her cheek against one of the girls. "Look, what a beautiful creation, they are flawless works of art." Chapter 10. Madness. Sorry, but I don't see anything beautiful about them. You damned madwoman, what have you done to them? Pietro leaned against the wall, using the friction to help himself stand up slowly. Anyone could see the unease in his eyes. This wasn't his first time facing a telepathic mutant, and Pietro knew all too well how bizarre their powers could be. I have given them gifts and blessings, all for the next generation. Look at them, look at these little darlings, newly born telepaths. Do you know what this means? We are the chosen ones, and I can bring these blessings to them. Emma's expression was extremely twisted, her entire face contorted with madness, but her eyes were filled with a tender love as she gently caressed the heads of the two girls, as if they were priceless treasures. Seeing this scene, Pietro felt only a wave of nausea. He took a couple of steps back, wanting to distance himself from Emma to gain a sense of safety. If turning into lunatics is considered a blessing, then the one giving this blessing is not a god, but a devil. The whispers around him started to speak again, and Pietro felt that if he tried to think about anything, these voices would drive him crazy. Was this the telepathy of that madwoman, Emma? Pietro felt enveloped by an indescribable force and the nausea in his stomach grew worse. Then, Pietro lost some control over his body, which began trembling uncontrollably, making it difficult for him to stand. Say what you want, speedster, you have no idea how my creations will transform this world. Emma smiled, her face returning to its initial calm, though her eyes held a hint of mockery as she looked at Pietro. You're bringing destruction to the world, Pietro replied, struggling against his body's discomfort. His condition was terrible. Shaking his head violently, Pietro's vision grew blurry, as if a nearsighted person had taken off their glasses. In his daze, Pietro saw mist rising around him. No, strictly speaking, it wasn't mist. Pietro couldn't identify what it was. It gathered rapidly from the gaps in the iron doors on both sides of the corridor, rolling continuously around Pietro and Emma. Within the mist, faint human figures could be seen. At first, Pietro thought he was seeing things, but as he squinted through the nausea, he was horrified to realize that hidden in the pale mist were the indistinct forms of little girls. Now Pietro understood what these negative energy-filled, eerie things were. Meanwhile, Emma continued speaking to herself. Honestly, if there really is a god in this world, then you are a gift sent to me by that god. Emma stretched out her arms, as if wanting to embrace Pietro. You're a lunatic. Pietro cursed. Don't you also have telepathy? Can't you see the psychic energy around us? These children were turned into this by you, and you call it a blessing. You can actually sense it. Emma's eyes brightened, filled with a possessive desire as she gazed at Pietro, though she quickly suppressed it. Yes, this is my mission. I lost everything, Emma spoke softly, her hands trembling as she recalled painful memories. My blessings, my everything was taken back by the gods. I don't know what I did wrong. Anyone seeing Emma like this would think she was a pitiable woman who had suffered a great grievance. But Pietro only wanted to run as far away as possible. So, I will take it all back. Emma's humanity vanished, leaving only madness. She removed her gloves, revealing hands made of gleaming diamond. This is my power, and no one can take it away. Not even the gods. Emma suddenly appeared in front of Pietro, her diamond hand gripping his throat. The immense strength made Pietro suffocate instantly, unable to muster the strength to struggle. And you, speedster, you will be my most crucial experiment. Don't worry, I won't kill you. You're different from them. While those children have strong gifts, they are ultimately just ordinary humans, unable to bear the power of telepathy. But you are different. Your brain is resilient, very resilient. Emma's other hand slowly lifted, grabbing her white hair and pulling it back. In the next moment, a head covered in stitched scars appeared before Pietro. It was evident that Emma had performed numerous craniotomies on herself. Although it was unclear how she managed it, the scars resembled centipedes crawling across her head, a horrifying sight that would make anyone's legs go weak. Don't worry, you won't die. You will continue to live in my mind, as long as... Boom! A blinding light suddenly exploded, tearing through the darkness of the corridor. The beam flashed and Emma was sent flying. The force of the beam was so strong that it sent Emma's body hurtling through the air, she crashed heavily to the ground with a metallic clang. Then, an angry voice echoed in the silent corridor. Let go of my brother, you freak! Hearing this familiar voice, Pietro's legs gave out, and he fell to his knees, tears streamed down his face. "Are you okay, Pietro?" Alex rushed to Pietro, pointing his armored left arm towards Emma as he tilted his head slightly to ask. "What took you so long? I almost died." Pietro clung to Alex's clothes, tears streaming down his face. If he were alone, Pietro would have forced himself to be strong, but now that Alex was here, Pietro finally found support. He felt like a bullied child who had found his parent, wanting to pour out all his grievances. All right, I understand," Alex consoled him half-heartedly. "Don't forget our plan. Go find that helmet. Leave this to me." "Helmet? I don't know where it is. I can't use my super speed here, the telepathy will tear my brain apart." Pietro clutched his head in fear, not wanting to experience that torment again. Seeing this, Alex realized that the environment was more complicated than he had thought, and it specifically affected Pietro. As an ordinary person, he felt nothing, unsure if that was a good or bad thing. "Then do the search slowly, Pietro. I believe in you. But I really don't know where the helmet is." "This place is too big to search," Pietro said, his face twisted with worry, pointing towards Emma. "I thought she'd be wearing it on her head. If she did that, she wouldn't be able to use her telepathy. Look around, the helmet can only be used in one place here." "You mean the laboratory?" Pietro realized. Alex didn't say much more, handing Pietro a loaded submachine gun. "I believe in you." Taking the gun, Pietro looked at Alex's serious face, nodded slightly, and then stood up resolutely. He gave Alex a deep look, then ran towards the other end of the corridor without looking back. Watching Pietro's figure disappear into the darkness, Alex turned his attention back to the fallen Emma. "It's time we talked, Emma. You've really broken my heart." Chapter 11. Twisted Minds. Alex had already tested the power of Iron Man's suit. Although it couldn't compare to Iron Man's suit in the main universe, the particle beam weapon was still a formidable weapon that hadn't been fully developed in his previous life. However, even with such a power, it still wasn't enough to take on Emma Frost, who had transformed her entire body into diamond. "Stand up, Emma. I know you're not hurt." Alex suppressed his anger and took a few steps forward. "To be honest, when I first read about you in the newspapers, I mentally prepared myself. But guess what? I still can't tolerate what you've done. Of course, you wouldn't understand the brilliance of my actions, human. You're just an inferior species. What right do you have to comprehend my thoughts?" Emma stood up, her entire body shimmering in the dim light as it transformed into diamond. Without hesitation, Alex pulled out a submachine gun from behind him and aimed at the White Queen, opening fire. Countless bullets sprayed out, striking her body and producing a series of sharp, metallic ding-ding-dang-dang sounds. "What's wrong, oh noble and superior mutant? Has your telepathy stopped working?" Alex's tone was filled with sarcasm as he watched Emma being suppressed by his firepower. In his memories, Emma Frost was a complex character in the Marvel Universe. Initially a villain who co-founded the Hellfire Club, she later joined the X-Men and even briefly wielded the Phoenix Force during a major event. With such an impressive track record, Alex dared not be careless when facing her. Emma Frost was not just a simple telepath. She possessed telepathic abilities similar to Charles Xavier's while also having high proficiency in them. She was considered a world-class telepath and an Omega-class telepath. Even Professor X held her telepathic skills in high regard. Moreover, she was recognized as one of the 5 telepaths on the planet who could perfectly and seamlessly alter thoughts. In the comics, Emma even defeated Professor X using her telepathic abilities, making her arguably more powerful in certain respects. However, Professor X had the advantages of higher popularity and more frequent appearances. Additionally, Emma was a secondary mutant, possessing not only telepathy but also the ability to transform her entire body into diamond, much like Colossus. This gave her formidable close combat and defensive capabilities, making her even more dangerous. If there was a single weakness to her abilities, it was that she could only use one power at a time. In her diamond form, she couldn't use her telepathy. Of course, this information was deduced by Alex based on the White Queen from other universes. However, in this world, Emma probably didn't even have a tenth of her abilities. "I went through almost all the news about you and gathered many rumors. What surprised me the most was finding intelligence about you in Nick Fury's safe house. Alex emptied his bullets and casually put the submachine gun away. He looked at the unharmed White Queen and smiled. Who would have thought that Emma Frost, the great philanthropist and living saint, was in reality a madwoman conducting human experiments, modifying pregnant women and infants, and trying to activate their telepathic abilities. Emma, you can continue deceiving yourself, but you know deep down that no matter what you do, you can't regain your telepathy. You're lying. Emma screamed as she stood up, nearly stumbling in her agitation. I will get it back. I will. Is that so? But how long has it been since you last heard someone else's thoughts? 3 years? 5 years? Even longer? You're just using these pathetic methods to control these children. As Pietro said, you can't see that their souls have entangled with psychic energy, turning them into emotionless, undying monsters. Although it was initially just a guess, the intelligence in Nick Fury's safe house confirmed Alex's suspicions. In this world, like Professor X, Emma awakened telepathy. However, their fates diverged significantly. Both suffered from multiple personality disorders due to excessive reception of others' memories, resulting in numerous personalities crowding their minds and driving them insane. This was a pain all telepaths might face. Although often glossed over in the comics, it wasn't entirely without precedent. For example, in another universe, Professor X experienced a similar ordeal. During a conflict involving mutants, Wolverine injured Magneto. Enraged, Magneto tried to extract all the adamantium from Wolverine's body. This act infuriated Professor X, who forcefully entered Magneto's mind using telepathy. However, this intrusion met with severe resistance from Magneto's negative emotions: anger, sorrow, and pain, which flowed back into Professor X's mind through telepathy. This led to the creation of Onslaught, a being that nearly destroyed all superheroes. In this world, such side effects were even more pronounced. The minds of people were filled with various emotions, almost overwhelming Emma's brain with countless personalities. Subsequently, Emma awakened her diamond transformation ability. Perhaps due to the conflict between her powers, she gradually lost her telepathic abilities. Initially, her mind became quieter, and eventually, she couldn't even actively read others' memories. Ultimately, she completely lost her telepathy, retaining only her diamond form. If that was all, it might have been a blessing in disguise for Emma. But losing telepathy didn't mean her mental illness was cured. Without telepathy to suppress it, the personalities surged, constantly tormenting her, and even losing control over her diamond form. In the end, she went mad. She decided to reclaim her abilities, targeting newborns and pregnant women. To avoid detection by President X and the Avengers, she established a church and a welfare institute, appearing on television to give speeches and presenting herself as a compassionate philanthropist. Coupled with her refined and beautiful appearance, politicians and corporations soon fell under her charm, giving her the green light at every turn. No one knew the twisted, grotesque soul hidden beneath her beautiful exterior. Chapter 12. Escape. Give up, Emma. I'll end your suffering, trust me. Alex looked at the woman in front of him, who had fortunately awakened her telepathic abilities but was unfortunately tortured by them to the point of becoming a monster, and spoke seriously. End my suffering? How will you do that? With this, Alex pulled out a pistol, the same kind that killed Nick Fury. Of course, you'll need to deactivate your diamond form first, otherwise the bullet won't penetrate. In your dreams. Before Alex could finish, Emma screamed and interrupted him, then roared and lunged at Alex, like an enraged beast or a bloodthirsty demon. Alex raised his left hand, and the particle beam instantly lit up. He was always ready for Emma's move, and as she acted, Alex's particle beam was already ready to fire. Bang! With a golden flash, and Emma's body instantly halted mid-air. The next moment, she was violently hurled back with tremendous force, faster than her previous speed, ultimately crashing heavily to the ground again. Don't resist. This thing might not harm you, but it has a powerful repelling effect. You can't reach me. Alex waved his hand, revealing the Iron Man suit hidden in his sleeve. Really? Emma, lying on the ground, gave a twisted smile. I can't, but they can. As Emma's words fell, a soft, ethereal laugh, like that of a child, suddenly echoed in the corridor. Then, pale mist began to spread from the darkness. Seeing this, Alex couldn't help but take half a step back, but he quickly steadied himself, returning his foot to its original position. So this is the scene Pietro saw earlier. It's really terrifying, like watching The Grudge or It in VR. Licking his dry lips, Alex stared intently at the increasingly thick mist. Feeling a wave of dizziness, Alex decisively fired several shots into the hazy figures in the mist. The gunfire briefly dispelled the mist, but soon it reformed, taking on human shapes again, accompanied by eerie laughter that seemed to mock Alex's futile efforts. It's useless. This is power formed entirely by psychic energy. From the moment you entered my territory, you were already within their bodies. They are everywhere, physical attacks can't destroy them. Emma, hidden in the mist, was unaffected by the psychic energy due to her diamond form. Hearing this, Alex showed little reaction, but the sweat on his forehead revealed his awareness of the dire situation. The mist was not a manifestation of telepathy, indicating Emma's human experiments had failed. If these children truly had awakened telepathic abilities, they could have controlled him instantly, leaving no room for resistance. In a sense, however, Emma's experiments weren't entirely failures. These tragic children had long since died. Their souls and resentment, mixed with weak psychic energy, grew stronger as more died. They usually lay dormant beneath the orphanage, but when someone enters, they become prey for these tortured souls. Emma, with her diamond form telepathic protection, was unafraid of this psychic energy, but Alex, a mere human, couldn't help but feel anxious in the face of this strange power. Alex fired a few more shots at the ghostly figures, even though he knew it was futile, but he had no other choice. He couldn't use the particle beam from his palm, uncertain if it would harm these eerie entities. Moreover, Emma was lurking nearby, waiting for an opportunity to strike. The particle beam couldn't be fired continuously, it needed a few seconds to recharge, enough time for Emma to tear him apart. He knew Emma was waiting for that moment. So Alex quickly gave up on the particle beam. He kept his palm beam ready to fend off Emma's attack while shooting at the mist, trying to prevent the psychic energy from overwhelming his mind. Fortunately, though powerful, the mist's attacks were simple. Like boiling a frog, it would trap its prey within itself, wearing them down over time. When the prey could no longer bear it, the psychic energy would invade their minds, turning them into mindless zombies. Calculating the rate of psychic invasion, Alex became more agitated by the approaching shadows and whispers but quickly calmed himself. When Pietro entered, Alex followed closely. Logically, both should be equally affected, yet Pietro seemed more affected than himself. At first, Alex thought it was because Pietro was a mutant and he was a regular human, so the psychic energy targeted Pietro more. But now he realizes it wasn't that simple. The attacks should be indiscriminate and less influenced by speed. The biggest difference between him and Pietro was speed. Pietro was a speedster, his actions and thoughts were much faster than Alex's, thus consuming more energy. This was the truth behind the psychic attack. Alex's eyes lit up. I know how to deal with this now. As long as I empty my mind and minimize mental strain, these things can't touch me. Hearing this, Emma was stunned, an expression of disbelief on her face, the first time Alex had seen such a look from her. I know what you're trying to do, but it's useless. I'll keep my eyes on you, you can't get past me. Alex warned Emma cautiously. I must admit, you surprise me. You're very smart, Alex. I'm almost in love with your mind. Emma smiled stiffly, staring deeply at Alex. But do you think you've won? Emma spread her arms, and the shadows in the mist gathered around her. Even if you slow your consumption, you're still trapped here. How long can you last? A minute, 10 minutes, half an hour? In the end, you'll die. Oh no, you'll stay and join our family. It won't take that long. Alex tilted his head, smiling. I still have a bus to catch. Before his words were finished, a figure appeared beside him. In an instant, the mist behind the figure exploded, torn apart by a silver flash of lightning, leaving a clear path through the darkness. What? Emma's eyes widened, realizing the situation. You arrived just in time, Pietro. Without turning, Alex recognized his rescuer, and he was finally able to relax. Pietro didn't respond immediately, he walked to Alex's side and tapped his helmet, which was made of a metal that blocked telepathy. This helmet allowed Pietro to use his abilities freely. I've got what we came for. Let's go. I don't want to stay here any longer. As you wish. Alex jumped on Pietro's back. Their conversation lasted only a few seconds. Before Emma could react, Alex was already on Pietro's back, blowing her a kiss from afar. No. Emma reached out, trying to grab or stop them, but they vanished in a breath. Their speed was beyond the visual observation of the human eye. Gasping, tears of blood ran down Emma's face. She stared into the empty darkness, releasing Alex's presence, which was gone, like a phantom. No. Chapter 13. Downfall. Pietro ran at his full speed. Possibly due to the deep psychological shadows cast by the orphanage's basement, Pietro's speed was noticeably faster than usual. The two of them ran out of the orphanage, not stopping for a moment. Pietro directly placed Alex in the car's driver's seat, even thoughtfully fastening his seatbelt. From Alex's perspective, it was just a brief blur and a small jolt. When he came to his senses, his hands were already gripping the steering wheel. Then, ugh! The high-speed motions caused Alex's stomach to churn, and he stuck his head out the window to vomit. After a while, Alex finally recovered from the sickness. Hurry up! And drive, Alex! What if that crazy woman catches up? Pietro patted Alex, urging him impatiently. Although they had left the orphanage, he still wasn't at ease. That woman won't catch up anytime soon. Without psychic abilities, the White Queen is like a toothless tiger, not much of a threat. Alex rubbed his stomach. I feel really bloated right now. Is that normal? It's normal. Most people can't handle high-speed movement, so there will be some side effects. It'll pass soon, don't worry. Pietro explained, but kept glancing back towards the orphanage, clearly still uneasy despite Alex's words. Seeing this, Alex didn't hesitate and quickly started the car, driving away from the town along the main road. For now, you should wear this helmet. With this on, President X won't be able to track you, and we can destroy the mutant prison unnoticed. Got it, boss. Pietro finally sighed in relief once they were out of sight of the town. But you'll need to tell me as much as possible about the secret mutant prison. We don't have much time. War has already broken out on the other side of the world. We need to fan the flames before President X reacts. Our next actions need to be even quicker. Alex said this while handing Pietro a propaganda leaflet he found in the car, left there by some flyer distributor earlier that morning. The flyer clearly stated that the border situation had become out of control and that other countries had sounded the horns of war, creating the impression that another world war was imminent. At the top of the flyer was the symbol of the Church of the Next Generation. It seemed that the person distributing the flyers was coincidentally a member of the church established by Emma Frost. Don't worry, I'll tell you everything I know, as long as you keep your promise. Pietro glanced at the flyer before crushing it and tossing it aside. Having lived 2 lives, Alex deeply understood the importance of intelligence. If he wanted to accomplish these nearly impossible tasks, information would undoubtedly be his greatest asset. For instance, with Emma Frost, if he didn't know her abilities or hadn't gathered more information about her in this world, he wouldn't have been able to take the helmet from her, let alone face President X. Similarly, breaking into the mutant prison and releasing the prisoners inside required more intelligence. The security of the mutant prison was one concern, but the prisoners themselves were a double-edged sword. If handled well, they could help him achieve his goals. Handled poorly, they might tear him to pieces the moment he freed them. This was definitely not the scenario Alex wanted to see, so he needed to gather more intelligence before taking action. Fortunately, the journey to Texas was long. Based on Pietro's first-hand experience in the mutant prison, Alex had a general understanding of President X's secret prison and knew many internal details. For instance, the warden of the mutant prison was a man named Fisk, a giant over 2 meters tall, weighing over 400 pounds, and with a body made of mostly muscle. This Fisk was most likely this universe version of the villain Kingpin from Spider-Man and Daredevil. It was surprising that the notorious New York mob boss in other universes had become a warden here. Alex was taken aback by the news, but it also made sense in an unexpected way. As for the prisoners in the mutant prison, Pietro remembered each of them vividly. There was a man named Summers, who, during his mutation, accidentally killed his family with laser beams from his eyes. Subsequently, his eyeballs were removed and he was imprisoned in the mutant prison. Then there was a female prisoner named Kitty, known along with Pietro as the twin stars of escape in the prison. Pietro relied on his super speed, while Kitty had an even more formidable ability: she could phase through objects by converting her body to a molecular state. Her ability to phase through objects was so strong that no one could kill her unless they forced her to become tangible, like trapping her underwater. For her, escaping prison was usually a piece of cake, but unfortunately, during one escape attempt, Her power failed while passing through a cell bar, resulting in her merging with the iron bars. Another similar case was a man named Armando, whose ability was to automatically mutate to adapt to his environment. However, during a fire, he was buried under a collapsed building. By the time he was rescued, he had fused with a piece of rebar and lost consciousness, falling into a kind of coma. Then there was a guy named Kurt, isolated in a separate cell. Unlike other mutants, he was a beast-like mutant. This kind of mutant was typically influenced by their beastly instincts, becoming bloodthirsty and frenzied, eventually turning into a real beast. Kurt was no different. His appearance was demonic, with the power of teleportation, theoretically a very strong mutant ability. However, he had lost all reason and become a wild, feral creature. Listening to Pietro's account, Alex felt a mix of emotions. Cyclops, Shadowcat, Darwin, Nightcrawler. In another universe, these were celebrated heroes. Taking a deep breath, Alex gestured for Pietro to stop talking. He turned on the car's stereo, needing some music to soothe his heavy heart. Chapter 14. Prison. In fact, the secret mutant prison was not as far away as Alex had imagined. It was located on the border of Texas, disguised as a military base, similar to a logistics depot. The prison was hidden underground, and not far away, there was even a railway track. However, this railway line had long been abandoned. It was left over from World War II for transporting supplies. After the war, the area was designated as a secret military base, making the railway obsolete. But with World War III looming, it wouldn't be long before trains would be speeding along that track again. Far from the military base, Alex and Pietro got out of the car. From here on, they would have to proceed on foot. How do we get in? Pietro, returning to his old home, was extremely uneasy. Even wearing a helmet that could block telepathic abilities didn't make him feel safe, he was constantly afraid of President X controlling his mind. Alex wasn't surprised by Pietro's fear. The kid had already developed a psychological shadow. During the car ride, he had been woken up by nightmares several times, sometimes even hallucinating President X's voice in his head. Honestly, convincing Pietro to return to the secret mutant prison and to steal from President X's secret room made Alex feel he had the potential to be a top-notch cult leader. Wait until it's dark, then you use the cover of night to get me inside. After that, you'll sabotage the base's power supply. I've explained this plan to you several times now, you haven't forgotten it, have you? Alex frowned. Of course I remember, but, just in case, I mean, what if President X uses his telepathy to foresee our plans and sets a trap for us? Pietro asked nervously. He won't. Pietro had asked similar questions the entire journey, and Alex was getting a bit tired of it. Charles has been missing for a long time. Look at how chaotic the borders are, and he hasn't shown up. I suspect something has happened to him. We're seizing this opportunity to stir things up. Besides, I've given you the helmet. I'm not scared, so what are you afraid of? With this helmet, even if we encounter Charles, you could kill him in a second. So, he should be the one afraid of you, not the other way around. Right, right, right. He should be afraid of me. Pietro patted his chest, seemingly trying to hypnotize himself, but then quickly added, but, Alex, don't you think the two of us alone is too risky? So, what do you suggest? Alex rubbed his temples. How about we recruit some cannon fodder? The gangs in Washington, D.C. are pretty good. You wait here, I can bring back hundreds of guys overnight, Pietro said seriously. Stop with that nonsense. Hundreds of guys? Recruiting gangs? Do you hear yourself? In times like these, anyone could betray you. Are you asking them to help just to die? Alex knew Pietro wouldn't have any good ideas. The two chatted intermittently, and soon the sky darkened, casting the vast desert into shadow. Be careful, and don't be as fast as the last time. My body can't take it, Alex said as he lay on Pietro's back, regretting the words as soon as he said them because they sounded strange. However, the tense Pietro didn't notice. Without replying, he began running, like a shooting star, heading straight for the military base. Having broken out several times, Pietro was familiar with the security measures. Quickly, without alerting any guards, he reached the hidden mutant prison beneath the military base. When Alex's vision cleared, he felt his stomach churning again but managed to suppress it this time. Looking around, he found himself in a break room, a simple space with only a window and 2 bunk beds. 2 soldiers were sleeping on the bunks, but with Pietro's help, they wouldn't wake up again. The room's wallpaper was peeling, the bed frames were rusted, and the air was thick with an unbearable stench. Alex felt like he was back in Emma's underground lab. "How old is this place?" "Not sure," Pietro said, shaking his head. "I heard it's been around for decades. They say it dates back to World War II when soldiers herded mutants onto the battlefield, using them as cannon fodder, forbidding retreating by killing anyone who did. Those mutants had no choice but to charge forward. After the war, some surviving mutants were secretly executed, while others were brought here for various experiments. But nothing came of it until President X took over and converted it into a mutant prison. There's such a history here." Alex sighed. "It's just hearsay, since I wasn't around at that time. But I think it's likely true because I've seen many mutants like me, most of them get driven mad by their powers. I understand, which is why I think this world is deeply sick." Alex changed into a soldier's uniform. "Remember, the prison is shaped like a shape with 4 levels. The lower you go, the more dangerous the mutant prisoners are. I suggest you avoid the 4th level and start from the 3rd. Fisk's office is at the end of the hallway on this level, and the stairs to the next level are on the right side of this room." Pietro took out several sets of keys, indicating he had already done quite a bit in the short time since they arrived. "Got it." Alex took the 3 sets of keys from Pietro. There were 4 sets of keys, corresponding to 4 levels, but like Pietro, he had no intention of releasing the mutants on the lowest level. The reason was simple: too many uncontrollable factors. As an ordinary human, every mutant Alex released posed a corresponding danger to himself. If he released a completely uncontrollable lunatic, he would be the first to die. Chapter 15. Releasing the prisoners. Initially, Alex's plan was to have Pietro handle all the tasks. After all, Pietro was a speedster. Since he could bring Alex inside and collect all the cell keys without alerting other soldiers and the warden, it proved that Pietro was perfectly capable of opening all the cells in a short amount of time. Unfortunately, this plan was not feasible. The entire power supply system of the secret mutant prison was located in the above-ground facility, and the two were interconnected. If anything went wrong in the secret mutant prison, the power supply system would immediately activate the automatic defense system. This automatic defense system was a highly advanced electric barrier. Anyone passing through it would be electrocuted into charcoal, and the barrier would instantly envelop the entire mutant prison, making it impossible for anyone inside to get in or out. Even if a few powerful or special mutants could get through the barrier, what good would it do? They would be recaptured within days, and a few escaped mutants wouldn't achieve Alex's plan. So, this idea was unworkable. Similarly, the plan to destroy the power system first to prevent the electric barrier from activating and then release the prisoners also wouldn't work. Destroying the power system would put the entire mutant prison on lockdown, with the military surrounding the place. Pietro couldn't dodge bullets in such a confined space. The only outcome for him would be death. Even if he succeeded, how many mutants could he release? The plan would be as ineffective as the previous one. To achieve the plan, there was only one choice: release the prisoners first, then destroy the power system from outside to disable the electric barrier. This way, more mutants could escape, and the soldiers outside wouldn't stand a chance against so many mutants. For this to work, Alex and Pietro had to divide tasks. The power system was heavily guarded, and Alex wasn't confident he could destroy it in such an environment, so that task fell to Pietro. Alex himself would handle unlocking the cells. With their tasks clearly divided, Alex and Pietro immediately set to work. Alex hid the keys and pretended to be an exchange shift guard, strolling casually out of the room. Walking through the prison corridors, the dampness, cold, stench of blood, and the smell of rotting flesh mixed with the noise of chains dragging on the ground, created a hellish atmosphere. Alex kept his head down, trying to minimize his presence. At the same time, he curiously glanced at the mutants locked in cells on either side of the corridor. Some were asleep, while others were awake, watching Alex with cold eyes. Although they didn't know Alex, they recognized his uniform. In the mutant prison, offending the guards was very dangerous. Alex had to admit that Warden Fisk had trained these prisoners well. Many familiar faces were among them: Siren, Psylocke, Sprite, and other former X-Men members from his previous life. There were also some who hadn't shown identifiable mutant abilities, so Alex couldn't identify them. The entire prison was in a state of dull atmosphere, even among the guards. As he passed a drowsy guard, the man merely glanced at Alex before closing his eyes again to nap. Water dripped from the prison ceiling, and in the darkness, the sound of sewage flowing through pipes added to the oppressive, depressing atmosphere. Alex couldn't imagine the inhumane conditions these mutants endured every day. If it were him, he knew he would be driven mad within 3 days. As he descended the stairs, the stench grew worse. On the 3rd level, Alex saw those who had turned into monstrous bestial mutants, like the Nightcrawler Pietro had mentioned. Besides him, there was Angel, who had lost a wing, and Beast, who had become a large blue creature. There was also Kitty Pryde, merged with a pillar. When Alex passed her, she didn't react, her lifeless eyes suggesting she was already dead inside. Is it that early today? A guard yawned upon seeing Alex. He was surprised that his colleague was so diligent as to come early for the shift change. Early? I think I'm late, Alex replied blandly. In the next moment, Alex pulled out a silenced submachine gun and fired a burst at the drowsy guards. No one expected Alex to act suddenly, and in their drowsy state, they had no chance to resist. They were turned into Swiss cheese by Alex's bullets. The gunfire instantly alerted the prisoners, who were now excited. Smelling blood, they pressed themselves against the bars, reaching out towards Alex like sharks sensing blood in the water. Quiet down, you freaks! Alex knew that the moment he fired, the surveillance cameras had caught him. There was no other way. He had to move quickly. I'll let you out, he said, taking off the soldier's jacket. Instead of using the keys, he extended his left hand, gathering particle beams and firing a repulsor blast that shattered the nearest cell door. Inside the cell was Beast, who immediately rushed out, glanced at Alex, and then at the metallic gleam of Alex's left hand, seemingly fearing its destructive power. After a few seconds of hesitation, seeing that Alex wasn't stopping him, Beast roared and pounced on the soldiers' corpses, devouring them voraciously. It was clear he was starving. Witnessing this, Alex took a few deep breaths. Despite having been in this world for so long, he still hadn't gotten used to such scenes and still felt a wave of nausea. Ignoring the feasting Beast, Alex quickly went to the other cells and used the keys to unlock them. After blasting Angel's head to pieces because he tried to attack him, the process went more smoothly. These monsters, though their minds were overtaken by their feral instincts, retained enough rationality to understand that antagonizing the human helping them escape was not a good idea if they wanted to survive. Chapter 16. The Prison Battle. The piercing sound of alarms reverberated throughout the mutant prison. Red alarm lights flickered in the dim corridors, casting a crimson glow on the passageways. Water droplets trickled down the walls, looking eerily like blood under the flashing lights as they fell to the ground. This old facility, whose construction date was unknown, hadn't been this lively for a long time. Since President X ordered its reconstruction, no one had dared to cause trouble here for years. Any disobedient escapees were quickly recaptured by Warden Fisk. The soldiers here had become accustomed to mocking these mutant monsters. No matter how powerful these mutants were outside, here they were nothing more than dogs. But today, the situation seemed to have reversed. The soldiers, awakened by the alarm, barely had time to dress. They knew what this alarm meant: someone had opened the prison and released the prisoners without authorization. If these monsters were set free, it would be troublesome. The most troublesome part was that if they didn't quickly regroup and recapture the prisoners, they would face the inhuman torture of Warden Fisk. In the mutant prison, Warden Fisk was the only person, aside from President X, who instilled fear in them. Both the mutants and the guards were terrified of him. They had witnessed Fisk tormenting mutants in various ways, deriving pleasure from their pain. They had also seen those who offended Fisk thrown into the mutants' cells to become their food. Thinking of this, the soldiers couldn't help but shiver. No one wanted to meet such a fate. They rushed out of their dormitories as quickly as possible, heading towards the mutant prison. But when they reached the second floor, they were stunned by the scene before them. Dozens of soldiers armed with submachine guns were all frozen in shock. Not far from the corridor door, Warden Fisk's massive body lay motionless on the ground, a large hole in his stomach. Beasts like Nightcrawler and Toad, who had been imprisoned on the third floor, were feasting on his body. From Fisk's wide-open, lifeless eyes, it was clear that Nightcrawler had teleported behind him and killed him without his knowledge. He died without ever seeing his killer. But to the soldiers, how these monsters escaped and how Fisk died didn't matter. What mattered was that if they didn't act soon, they would be the next ones to die. The mutants from level 3 are loose. Open fire. Don't let them get close. A squad leader shouted, his voice trembling with fear. Rat-a-tat-a-tat-a. Gunfire erupted, bullets rained down on the mutants. Beast roared in anger at having his meal interrupted, his feral eyes fixed on the humans daring to attack him. His sharp teeth grated together, making a chilling sound. Suppress them. Don't let them get close. Meanwhile, on the 3rd floor, Alex paused while unlocking cells, his ears twitched as he heard the commotion from upstairs. It seemed the first batch of mutants had already engaged the soldiers. Alex had no doubt the mutants could handle the soldiers. Even though their powers were diminished in this universe, they weren't easily killed by ordinary guns. If some of them died, it was their fate. Alex didn't care about the lives of the soldiers or the mutants he released. This world was already a dark, broken place, beyond saving. His priority was to escape. After releasing the last prisoner on the 3rd floor, Alex stopped by Kitty Pryde's cell. In this world, Kitty appeared to be in her 20s, older than Pietro, and quite different from the young, vibrant Kitty he remembered. Alex's impression of Kitty was mostly from the comics and the young actress in the movies, who had since transitioned and couldn't reprise the role. Setting aside his thoughts, Alex looked down at Kitty. Need help? Kitty slowly opened her eyes, her gaze filled with complex emotions. Finally, she spoke softly, "You can't help me. This is a nightmare." Alex sighed deeply, closed his eyes for a moment, then placed his left hand, equipped with his Iron Man suit, on the iron pillar fused with Kitty's body. Kitty seemed to understand Alex's intention. She didn't resist but closed her eyes, waiting for what was to come. With a powerful pull, enhanced by his suit, Alex tore the pillar from the cell. Due to Kitty's situation, Warden Fisk hadn't used particularly strong materials for her cell, making Alex's demolition unusually smooth. In the next moment, Kitty's organs spilled out, spreading across the floor. The sound of organs falling on the ground made Alex's hand tremble. "Thank you," Kitty whispered with her last breath, then fell silent. Alex knew she couldn't be saved. Her mutation failing had fused her body with the pillar. Not even Tony Stark could have saved her quickly. Ending her suffering was better than leaving her in torment. Alex fell silent, closing his eyes briefly before reopening them with renewed determination. He ascended to the 2nd floor, where the battle continued. The soldiers, armed with heavy firepower, had temporarily suppressed the mutants, forcing them to take cover. Nightcrawler, Beast, and other strong mutants had launched several assaults but were repelled by the soldiers and guards due to their lack of coordination. The soldiers knew that the moment the mutants escaped, the prison was sealed by an electric barrier, trapping everyone inside. If they didn't kill the mutants, no one would escape. The mutants weren't foolish either. Realizing the soldiers' firepower, they took cover, seemingly waiting for an opportunity to strike. The soldiers, trying to conserve ammunition, stopped shooting and held their ground. In this tense standoff, neither side made a move. Then suddenly, darkness engulfed the corridor as if someone had cut the power. Most people lost their sight as the tunnel plunged into pitch blackness. Chapter 17. A terrifying guess. Quick, open fire. The soldiers were in a state of extreme tension, the fear of the monsters was making them jumpy at any sound. The sudden blackout was the final straw. This abrupt darkness shattered the soldiers' remaining sanity. Without their vision, the soldiers grew agitated and began firing wildly in all directions, indifferent to the risk of friendly fire. The muzzle flashes provided them with a semblance of safety. Unlike the soldiers, most of the beastly mutants had night vision. As natural predators, night vision was a basic ability. For them, the sudden power outage was just a brief flicker of darkness. As soon as their eyes adjusted, they could see their surroundings clearly. Soon, the backup power activated the emergency lights, dimly illuminating the passageway. However, the weak lighting was insufficient for soldiers. But it was too late. One of the soldiers at the front regained his vision just in time to see a massive claw snap at him. In the next instant, he was overpowered by a great force, and with a cold slash to his throat, he lost consciousness. "They're charging! Open fire! Open fire! I don't want to die, please, stop! Kill them, kill them, ah!" Alex hid in a corner on the 2nd floor, knowing the plan had succeeded. Pietro had sabotaged the power supply. From a distance, Alex observed the horror movie scene. The dim environment also affected his vision, but he could clearly see the flickers of light near the door to the 1st floor, the muzzle flashes of gunfire. Alongside the flashes came the sounds of bullets firing and colliding, and the hellish screams and roars of battle. The horrific scene was enough to make even Alex reluctant to get closer. Ignoring the front lines, Alex casually opened a nearby cell. Inside was a young man huddled in a corner, his eyes filled with fear as he looked at Alex. Don't kill me!" the boy screamed, trying to retreat further into the corner. "What's your name?" Alex asked coldly, his tone devoid of emotion. The boy covered his head, not daring to look directly at Alex. He stared at Alex's blood-stained boots instead, stammering, I am John Proudstar." There were many characters named John in the comics, and Alex couldn't remember them all. He considered this mutant a minor character who never appeared in the comics. "I have a task for you. Take these keys and release the other mutants. The power supply is destroyed, and the electric barriers are down. Everyone can escape now." Alex tossed the keys in front of John. Seeing no reaction, Alex drew his gun. "Maybe I wasn't clear. You have two choices, take the keys and do as I say, or I shoot you right now." I'll do it. John lunged forward, grabbing the keys. "Don't kill me, I'll do it right now." Without any further reaction, Alex stepped aside. John was surprisingly efficient, using his enhanced speed and strength to unlock the cells much faster than Alex could. With the task of unlocking outsourced, Alex felt a weight lifted from him. Unlocking cells in the dark was pure torture. Meanwhile, the battle at the front had ended. All the soldiers were dead. The dark environment was perfect for these creatures to hunt. Nightcrawler, with every teleport, killed a soldier, becoming a grim reaper for them. Perhaps the beasts had their fill, or they were eager to escape their long imprisonment. After killing the guards, they rushed to the first floor without delay. Alex followed them silently. The guards inside were just appetizers, he needed the mutants to clear out the soldiers outside. The guards wouldn't stand idly by as the mutants escaped. They couldn't catch the swift Pietro, but they could block the rampaging beasts. Sure enough, upon reaching the first floor, Alex found it nearly empty. Most of the mutants had already fled in the chaos, with only a few powerless ones left in their cells, like the now blind Cyclops. The mutants that charged out were met by bullets and cannon fire. In this facility, weapons were plentiful. Thousands of soldiers stood ready, attempting to exterminate the mutants on the spot. However, among the mutant prisoners, there were two who could teleport like Nightcrawler. Against this ability, firearms and cannons were useless. The soldiers quickly realized the mutants were more powerful than expected, especially when an old man with telekinesis flipped a tank. The battlefield descended into chaos, with deafening sounds all around. Alex tried to stay in the shadows, avoiding attention. The plan had succeeded, it was time to leave. But then, a communication officer caught Alex's attention. "Report. We need reinforcements. An assassin has released most of the mutant prisoners. They've broken our formation. We need backup." Assassin? The term made Alex stop. His plan was to release the prisoners. He didn't care what they called him, but assassin made him pause. An assassin usually has a target, someone significant enough to warrant assassination. Assassins and their targets are symbiotic, an assassin's presence implies a valuable target. Similarly, a place worth an assassin's visit must have a notable target. This term from the soldier indicated a major problem. There had to be someone here worth assassinating, a person with great influence, likely a high-ranking official commanding the troops. Only such a person would qualify as an assassination target. Initially, Alex thought the soldier referred to Warden Fisk. But Fisk was just the warden, not high-ranking enough to command the army. Plus, he was already dead. The only possible answer was recalling the secretive construction of the mutant prison and the strict confidentiality, along with the president's long absence. Alex's eyes widened in realization. President X was here. Chapter 18. President X. Realizing this, Alex did not hesitate. He shot the soldier beside the communication officer and rushed forward, firing several shots as the officer reached for his gun, rendering his hand a bloody mess. "What do you mean by assassin?" "Ah!" The soldier screamed in agony, not answering Alex's question. His cries were soon drowned out by the sounds of explosions, they were unheard amidst the chaos. Alex, impatient, stomped on the soldier's wound, causing him to silently scream in immense pain. "Is President X here?" Answer me. Yes, yes, the soldier nodded frantically, tears and snot covering his face. In his agony, he turned pale, his lips ashen. Where? Tell me. Alex demanded, gritting his teeth. The realization that President X was on the same military base as him left Alex feeling terrified. If it were anyone else, it wouldn't matter, but President X had genuine telepathic abilities, unlike Emma, who had lost her powers. There was no telling if President X had already discovered him or had silently invaded his mind, was ready to kill him without his knowledge. I don't know, I really don't, the soldier shook his head frantically, using his other hand to push against Alex's foot, trying to remove it from his wound. Alex believed him. It made sense that the soldier didn't know, President X's whereabouts were top secret. A low-ranking soldier wouldn't have such specific information. After finishing the soldier off with a bullet to the head, Alex quickly left the battlefield, heading towards the rendezvous point Pietro had described. He wasn't worried about Pietro, who had a helmet to protect against telepathy, but he himself had no such protection and was in grave danger. He needed Pietro to get him out of there as quickly as possible. At the same time, Alex felt a twinge of excitement. If President X was here, it meant his secret chamber was unguarded. If he could escape this place, he could leave this universe. However, as Alex neared the rendezvous point, he saw something unbelievable on the other side of the factory. The factory's outer wall had a massive hole, and Pietro lay helplessly on a mound of dirt outside. From Alex's vantage point, he could see Pietro's right leg bent at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. 10 minutes earlier, Pietro had been waiting for Alex's signal. When he heard the alarm, he knew it was time. The alarm was their agreed-upon signal. With the soldiers distracted, Pietro quickly brought the explosives from Nick Fury's safe house to the power supply station. It housed 4 enormous generators, heavily guarded by soldiers. But these soldiers were no match for Pietro. Moving swiftly in the dark, he planted all the explosives and detonated them. The resulting explosion turned the generators to scrap, the bright flash illuminated the sky. The destruction of the power supply drew everyone's attention. The soldiers split into 2 teams, one to suppress the escaping mutant prisoners, and the other to guard a factory building. Pietro was curious. In his memory, this was an abandoned factory with outdated equipment. It was decommissioned due to safety risks, and President X had no funds to replace the machinery. Yet now, they were protecting it. Perhaps it was because this factory was on the way to the rendezvous point, or maybe the successful plan made Pietro reckless. Normally, Pietro wouldn't stay here for a second longer than necessary, but now he wanted to see what the soldiers were guarding. In a flash, Pietro entered the factory. His enhanced mind quickly scanned the surroundings, finding a suitable hiding spot. He climbed onto a service ladder, hiding in the shadows, and watched the highest-ranking soldier, a black man wearing armor similar to Iron Man's. Pietro recognized him. He often appeared on TV with President X. The officer stood before a white container, knocking on its door with a mix of fear and resignation. The knocking echoed in the empty factory, silencing the soldiers. No one dared speak or even breathe loudly, afraid of disturbing something. A female voice soon came from the container. "Didn't I say not to disturb me recently?" "Sorry, President X, it's important," the officer said, his forehead sweating but his voice steady. On the service ladder, Pietro clamped a hand over his mouth to stifle a gasp. "Is it a border disturbance or a nuclear war? I've said it doesn't matter. Once I succeed, the whole world will bow before us," the female voice replied impatiently. "No, no, President X. An assassin has infiltrated the facility. They destroyed the power supply and released the mutant prisoners. The prisoners are almost out." The container fell silent, and in turn the entire factory fell silent. The officer swallowed nervously and continued, "We suspect it's remnants of the Avengers. They somehow learned your location and are using the mutant prisoners' riot too." Before he could finish, the officer was blasted away by a red energy, smashing through the factory wall and leaving a gaping hole. Then, the container door exploded open, and a stunning woman in a red dress, enveloped in a crimson energy, floated out. Chapter 19. Possession. She was a beautiful young woman with long hair cascading down her shoulders, a flawless face, and a hint of madness hidden beneath her calm demeanor. She wore a red dress, and atop her head was a red headpiece with 2 sharp horns. The Scarlet Witch. Pietro instantly recognized the woman. The Scarlet Witch's betrayal of the Avengers and her subsequent role as a whistleblower had shaken half the world. Pietro never dreamed he would see her here. Similarly, Pietro was confused as to why the black officer referred to the Scarlet Witch as President X. The Scarlet Witch gazed indifferently at the subordinate she had nearly incapacitated with a single blow. She gently raised her left hand, and crimson energy enveloped the black man's body, lifting him from outside the factory as if he were held by an invisible hand. "Are you saying there is a traitor in my army?" The Scarlet Witch's voice was melodious, like a nightingale's song, making anyone who heard it involuntarily smile. However, her tone was icy, creating a jarring contrast. I don't know, sir," the black man stammered, clearly in immense pain. "I personally selected each of you," the Scarlet Witch began. "You were chosen by me, and I am proud of you, despite your lowly human status. I gave you one task, to protect me until I fully possess this body. But what have you done? You let those Avengers remnants find this place. I should execute all of you." As she spoke, the Scarlet Witch clenched her fist, and the black man's body was instantly compressed into a ball by the red energy. He couldn't even scream before being reduced to an unrecognizable state. The surrounding soldiers bowed their heads silently, not daring to make a sound for fear of attracting President X's attention and becoming his next toy. The Scarlet Witch looked at her handiwork, a hint of happiness appeared in her eyes for the first time. "Look at this power, so wonderful, so magical. It will be the key to my rule over this planet. I haven't even used the full power of this body yet." Suddenly, the Scarlet Witch frowned as if sensing something. She raised her hand and crimson energy danced at her fingertips. Quickly, she seemed to confirm something and abruptly turned her head. Her gaze landed directly on Pietro's hiding spot. Being seen by the Scarlet Witch scared Pietro out of his wits. He reacted instantly. Though he didn't know how he had been exposed, Pietro knew staying meant death. He lightly stepped, and in a flash, ran 100 meters away. Even the Scarlet Witch couldn't keep up with his speed. As he ran through the hole the Scarlet Witch had blasted earlier, Pietro suddenly felt his right leg snap as if forcibly broken. A crisp sound that only he could hear echoed, and the next moment, he lost his balance, tumbling to the ground and rolling into a mound of industrial waste. Hiss! Pietro clutched his leg, gritting his teeth to stifle his cries. The pain assaulted his mind, bringing tears to his eyes. The Scarlet Witch tilted her head slightly as she looked at Pietro. "Interesting. I remember you. You're also a prisoner from the mutant prison. Your helmet is intriguing, it blocks my telepathy. No wonder I didn't detect your presence. It reminds me of an old friend, though he should be long dead." Pietro, meanwhile, had no time to respond to the Scarlet Witch's words. He was using all his strength to suppress the pain in his leg. His leg had been forcibly broken by chaos magic. The pain would have knocked anyone else unconscious but not him. "So, you allied with the Avengers remnants? It doesn't matter. With this power, no one can stop me. I must thank you for the gift. I'll take this helmet." The Scarlet Witch raised her hand again, crimson energy enveloping Pietro's head. She intended to take his head along with the helmet. At that moment, a laser beam suddenly shot towards the Scarlet Witch at high speed. Without any extra movement, the Scarlet Witch's wrist flicked, and the laser beam curved in mid-air, shooting into the night sky. As she prepared to unleash a powerful telepathic wave to find and control her attacker, a blue smoke bomb exploded in front of her. A sharp claw emerged from the smoke, slashing towards her throat. The Scarlet Witch instinctively unleashed a surge of red energy, blasting the attacker away. But before she could catch her breath, a blue creature swung a massive stone pillar at her. The Scarlet Witch managed to raise her hands, but the next moment, she was sent flying, crashing into the white container with an explosion. The mutant prisoners had arrived. The soldiers immediately engaged them, but how could ordinary humans fight these monsters? Especially since their strength had drastically increased after losing their humanity. At this point, Alex let out a sigh of relief. Honestly, he had gambled by shooting the palm cannon at the Scarlet Witch. Alex had seen the approaching mutants, but he feared that the Scarlet Witch would invade his mind before they arrived. Yes, Alex now knew that the Scarlet Witch was President X, or rather, that President X had possessed the Scarlet Witch using telepathy. Pietro was crucial to Alex's escape from this universe. Without Pietro, he couldn't find President X's secret chamber. Similarly, fearing Alex's deceit, Pietro hadn't revealed the location of the secret chamber. So, Alex couldn't let Pietro die here. The gamble paid off. President X's abilities weren't as invincible as he had feared, giving them a significant advantage. Chapter 20. Trump Card. Alex ignored the ongoing battle and ran straight to Pietro's side. Are you okay? Can you move? Seeing Pietro's deformed leg, Alex could imagine how terrifying the pain must be. He supported Pietro and asked with concern. Huff, huff. That guy is President X. Pietro didn't answer directly but immediately provided intelligence to Alex. I know. Are you all right? Let me take you out of here. Alex spoke seriously. Upon learning that President X was in this secret factory, Alex had been on edge. When he saw the Scarlet Witch, he was certain that she had been possessed by President X. This incident was well known in Alex's memory. In the movie universe, Professor X, when turned into fragments by the uncontrollable Phoenix, had transferred all his consciousness in advance and resurrected using the body of his vegetative brother. This demonstrated the terrifying utility of Professor X's powerful telepathic abilities. Since he could resurrect using a vegetative body, he could also forcefully occupy others' bodies. This time, President X likely targeted the Scarlet Witch, who possessed the legendary chaos magic. Although in this universe, anything magical didn't exist, but the chaos power of the Scarlet Witch was still an immensely powerful energy, even if weakened. It could still reshape the universe and alter reality. Now, with control over the Scarlet Witch's body, President X was theoretically unbeatable. Not even a nuclear bomb could harm him. So, Alex wanted to take Pietro and leave this chaotic place quickly while there was a distraction. No, it's no use. I can't move. Pietro spat blood, his face pale. Don't talk nonsense, hurry and come with me. It's really no use. Pietro's face contorted in pain as he took off his helmet, exerting all his strength to hold Alex's head and spoke. Thank you, Alex. Thank you for telling me those stories. I know my injuries are severe. You can't leave with me. Go quickly while they're distracted. The secret room is in the suburbs of New York, 1407 Graymalkin Lane. I believe in you. Don't tell me that. Get up. Alex gritted his teeth. Let me stay here. You said it yourself, this world is a nightmare without superheroes. So, am I a hero now? Alex didn't speak, his clenched fist trembling slightly. It's just a nightmare, just a nightmare. I just need to wake up. Pietro's voice grew weaker, then faded completely. Alex checked his breathing and found Pietro had fallen into a coma. This was a stroke of luck amidst misfortune. Blood from the helmet dripped onto Alex's fist. He stood up abruptly, as if making a firm decision. Turning away from the unconscious Pietro, he faced President X's direction. Sorry, Pietro. I never abandon my friends. With that, Alex walked towards the battlefield. The battle had escalated to a frenzy. Most soldiers were already dead, leaving only President X in possession of the Scarlet Witch, facing the escaped prisoners from the mutant secret prison. Beast raised a massive pillar, attempting to strike the Scarlet Witch same as before, but she was now enraged and didn't give him the chance. She forcefully pulled the pillar to herself with crimson energy, then slammed it onto Beast. The impact turned the pillar to pieces and pinned Beast beneath, blood seeped through the cracks. A woman with a light sword rushed to attack, but changed targets midway, impaling another prisoner instead before shielding the Scarlet Witch from Alex's energy beams. It seems you're the mastermind behind this operation, the true remnants of the Avengers. The Scarlet Witch withdrew her telepathy, calmly addressing Alex. Alex didn't reply but fired several shots instantly, all blocked by chaotic power. Is this your plan? The Scarlet Witch smirked. Sensing something, she suddenly turned, grabbing a blue smoke in the air. Nightcrawler emerged, struggling but unable to escape the chaotic power's grip. The Scarlet Witch maintained her grip, her eyes turning bloodthirsty. With a swift tear, Nightcrawler's body was violently torn apart by intense energy, falling lifeless to the ground. This gruesome scene terrified other mutants attempting to attack. They wanted to kill everyone here but weren't foolish enough to face such a terrifying being. After this, the Scarlet Witch elegantly turned to Alex. Do you really think this trash can kill me? Do you Avengers think you can overthrow me? You're just a joke, your lives are meaningless, like that lunatic Strange. Lunatic. Alex finally spoke. Like you, the naked wheelchair man. These words stabbed at the Scarlet Witch's heart. She erupted in rage, her immense power sending everything flying. She then grabbed Alex with crimson energy, lifting him into the air. "Do you think I won't kill you?" The Scarlet Witch's eyes glowed red, overwhelming anyone who met her gaze, driving them mad. Alex tried to activate his repulsor beams, but under chaotic power, the particles couldn't gather. Seeing Alex's futile attempt, the Scarlet Witch mocked him, then grabbed his body and dismantled his Iron Man armor piece by piece with her energy, turning it into scrap. "Stark's technology. Is this your trump card? How laughable. Did you think this scrap could kill me? Of course not." Alex stared coldly at the Scarlet Witch, or rather, President X. "Oh? Do you have any other tricks?" The Scarlet Witch sneered, reveling in the unmatched joy brought by taunting enemies. The power and authority intoxicated President X. Watching Alex completely overwhelmed, the Scarlet Witch spread her arms, exposing all her vulnerabilities. She grinned, staring at Alex with widened eyes, inviting him to attack. "Come on, use your tricks. Let me see. Kill me here, now." Alex, still calm, slowly placed his hands on his helmet and suddenly took it off. "Then let me show you." Chapter 21. Illusion. A thunderous roar, like someone fiercely beating a stick on one's head. The entire mind was instantly released, the spiritual world seemed to be stuffed with countless vast and complex information, this energy accumulated rapidly, filling the entire brain, and then exploded. A violent sense of falling suddenly descended. Like the feeling of free fall from 10,000 meters high, the weightlessness hit President X abruptly. He felt all his senses spiraling out of control, while the chaotic voices in his mind gradually quieted down. President X couldn't remember how long it had been since he last felt this tranquility. He only remembered that after inadvertently probing the brain of his gardener, various voices inexplicably emerged in his mind. Those voices were like the murmurs of a dreamer, completely illogical, but slowly and gradually, President X could clearly perceive that they were awakening, continuously learning, expanding, and polluting his brain. But he had no way to resist. He wanted to resist, he tried to resist, but he failed. After he crushed the brain of the first person who tried to attack him with psychic power, everything spiraled out of control. Just like at this moment. Those sorrowful, uncontrollable, fearful memories, even the thought of them made him suffer so much that he couldn't breathe, gradually surged, trying to confuse his mind again, floating above his head. President X widened his eyes, silently resisting. He didn't understand how this humble human in front of him dared to defy his will, even taking off the helmet that could protect his mind right in front of him. But when President X really touched his brain, the fierce onslaught of psychic power made President X lose consciousness in an instant, and when he was ready to resist, it was too late. No. President X didn't speak, but a deafening roar echoed in his ears, resonating in various languages from around the world, quickly becoming the only voice in President X's mind. At the moment when the two minds contacted, a connection had already been established. Even though President X desperately tried to retract his mental connection, it was futile. The other party's spiritual world was like a black hole, attracting all the invading information. President X felt as if he were forcefully dragged by an immensely strong force, or tied to a swiftly moving roller coaster. Soon, this roller coaster entered a tunnel filled with darkness and depth. President X didn't know how long this tunnel was or what its endpoint was. He only knew that those things that had troubled him, prevented him from sleeping, and surrounded him like a thick, sticky mud, were being stripped away from his mind bit by bit. Then, President X suddenly felt a solid touch on his back. It was a chair's backrest. The out-of-control body revived again, and the control of his body returned to him. President X couldn't help but gasp for breath heavily. But when he looked up, he found a huge screen in front of him. With a blank expression, President X was somewhat puzzled. He tried to say something, but couldn't make a sound. He glanced around and realized that he was sitting in an old-fashioned cinema. Many people were scattered around, sitting like him on seats. President X couldn't be sure if those things were really people because they didn't have facial features. Their faces were as clean as a piece of paper, without even imperfections. They were of both genders, dressed in various clothes, motionless on their seats, like mannequins deliberately placed here, extremely terrifying. Although they had no facial features, President X could feel that they were looking at him. It wasn't visual through their eyes but a more advanced form of scrutiny, at the spiritual level. This feeling, in such a quiet environment, seemed extremely eerie. Just as President X was about to be overwhelmed by unease, a sudden brightness behind him caught his attention. He withdrew his gaze, and President X realized that the large screen behind him had lit up, and he was sitting alone in the center of the front row. The screen flickered and then turned pure white, the surroundings dimmed, and President X didn't know what was happening, but he understood that the movie had begun. A young, handsome man appeared on the screen. Facing him was a federal investigator. Although it was the first time President X had seen that person, he was somehow sure that the handsome young man was himself, even though he looked nothing like himself. But President X knew, it was him. Hank has modified this radar device into a transmitter, which can enhance brainwaves to strengthen your psychic abilities, helping us to find more mutants. The screen started playing, and the sound came through the speakers. I thought you had already found them, a man suddenly stood up. If a new species is discovered, it should be discovered by its own kind. Charles and I are here to find new mutants, not you humans. President X slowly opened his mouth, as if trying to say a name, but he couldn't. He knew what he should say, but he couldn't remember that name no matter how hard he tried. First of all, that machine belongs to us humans, and secondly, this is also Charles's decision. Charles doesn't mind the CIA's interference, right Charles? No, President X and the man on the screen said simultaneously. I'm sorry, but I agree with Eric's statement. We should be the ones to discover them, not humans, the man on the screen said calmly. What if we disagree? Then I wish you good luck using this device without me. As if only a second had passed, or perhaps a breath, President X felt as if he had passed through an invisible barrier, and the grandiose fantasy that was enough to burst his brain occupied his mind, flooding into his spiritual domain. It shouldn't be like this. Everything is wrong. Since when did it start? When did history deviate from its course? The countless flashback scenes, the smiles of trust and respect from those who trusted him, President X stared dumbfounded at everything, unaware that the cinema had long disappeared, everything around him decomposed, dissipated, leaving only endless illusions and voices. Wanda. President X murmured softly, like the last moan of an old man on his deathbed, but this voice came from a young girl in her prime. Alex calmly stared at the Scarlet Witch who had already been occupied by President X. He took out the pistol from his chest, a replica of the one used by Nick Fury, slowly aimed it at the woman in front of him, and asked. What did you see? The Scarlet Witch's eyes had already fallen into a trance. Layer upon layer of flashback scenes reflected in her eyes, but they were things only he could see, like a hallucinatory, ephemeral world. After a moment, the Scarlet Witch's vermilion lips moved slightly. I saw myself happy. The next moment, Alex pulled the trigger. Chapter 22. Awakening. Pietro felt like he had a dream. In the dream, he was born in an ordinary small town. Though remote, it was quiet and seldom disturbed by outsiders. The residents lived simple lives, working from sunrise to sunset. His parents worked for a farm owner, doing tasks like feeding horses, chopping wood, and herding sheep. The farm owner, a bearded old man, was rumored to have traveled the world in his younger days. Pietro liked him because he always shared fascinating stories. The farm owner never treated Pietro's family as outsiders. Every evening, he gathered everyone around a large table for dinner. The adults would drink beer, while the children had various fruit juices. Once, Pietro wanted to try the beer, but the farm owner told him that only adults could drink it. After much pestering, the farm owner finally promised Pietro he could have some of his aged brew when he grew up. One evening, Pietro had already herded the sheep into the pen. He was no longer a child and could help his aging parents with work. Accompanying him was a dog. Grandpa, I'm back with the sheep. Pietro called out loudly as he ran back to the farm. Back already? Have some water. Slow down, don't be so hasty. The farm owner replied while cleaning his rifle. Pietro had seen him take the hunting rifle once to use it to scare off a bear that wandered into the town from a mountain. Forget that, Grandpa. You promised to tell me a story today after herding the sheep. Last time, you told me about a creepy orphanage. What happened next? Pietro eagerly pulled up a chair, sitting before the farm owner. The farm owner chuckled at Pietro's excitement. He set the rifle down carefully, wrapping it in burlap and placing it in its case before heading towards the storeroom. Pietro didn't interrupt, knowing the farm owner was likely going to pour himself a drink before continuing the story. The farm owner's steps were heavy as he walked into the small room adjacent to the house. The room stored farm tools and various items, including his treasured beer. Stopping by the beer barrel, the farm owner's gaze fell on a set of letters painted in white, now faded and damaged, but still recognizable: Stark Industries. He picked up 2 wooden mugs beside the barrel. Outside, Pietro waited anxiously, hoping the farm owner would hurry. But long ago, the farm owner had taught him that sometimes the most exciting part wasn't the stories but the waiting. It might have been 3 minutes or 10, but the farm owner finally emerged from the storeroom. Pietro smiled broadly, but then noticed the farm owner's stiff, mechanical movements. "Grandpa, are you okay?" Pietro asked, concerned. "It's nothing, just that time is running out." The farm owner's stiff face broke into a smile. He looked at Pietro warmly and trudged back to the table, placing 2 mugs on it. Seeing Pietro's worried expression, the farm owner smiled and pushed one of the mugs towards him. "Grandpa, you said kids couldn't drink beer," Pietro said while trying hard not to touch the mug. "You're no longer a kid, Pietro. Although, you'll always be a child to me," the farm owner said, taking a sip from his mug. The rich, warm beer slid down his throat, making him sigh in satisfaction. The farm fell silent except for the sound of the farm owner drinking. Pietro pondered quietly, glancing at the doghouse. His dog was nowhere to be seen, only a mat covered in dog hair remained. After a long while, Pietro broke the silence. "Grandpa, I don't belong here, do I?" The farm owner put down his mug, his expression calm but affectionate. "I'm sorry, my boy. I can't answer that. I remember every day here, but..." Pietro looked around, as if trying to imprint every detail of the farm in his mind. "But something tells me this isn't my real life. So, what's your choice, my boy?" "I don't know." Pietro stood, noticing for the first time that he now towered over the seated farm owner. "I want to stay here, but something tells me I have something important to do." "Then go do it, my boy," the farm owner said gently, though his voice held a weighty finality. "Can I leave?" Pietro asked, wide-eyed. "I don't know. I've never tried leaving," the farm owner replied with a smile. Pietro was stunned. He opened his mouth to say something but ended up with nothing. Looking at the man who had raised him, Pietro lowered his head, his thoughts were turbulent. Time seemed to freeze. Everything on the farm halted, the grass swaying in the wind, the butterflies dancing among the flowers, even the water droplets from the sprinkler were suspended in mid-air. It was as if someone had pressed pause, freezing this moment in time. Eventually, the farm owner set his mug down, and by then, Pietro had disappeared. Only the untouched mug of beer remained on the table. "I should have saved this, for next time." The world grew silent. Pietro's thoughts drifted aimlessly. He had no idea where he was or how much time had passed. It felt like a dream, chaotic and silent. He spent a long time gathering his fragmented consciousness, slowly piecing it back together. In an instant, he felt his body calling to him. Sensations flooded back, an overwhelming rush of touch and noise that almost shattered his mind again. Finally, his eyelids fluttered open, and Pietro's consciousness took control of his body. In front of him, Alex was driving with one hand on the wheel and the other holding a slice of pepperoni pizza. Glancing sideways at Pietro, Alex spoke with a mouthful of food, "You're finally awake. Want something to eat?" Chapter 23. Definitely not the end. "Alex. Why are you here?" "No, why am I here? I remember, yes, we were fighting President X. I should be dead. Did you die too?" Pietro struggled to speak, his supercharged brain nearly overwhelmed by the fragments of memory. Countless pieces of information left him unable to process his current state. "Calm down, neither of us is dead. Relax, okay? We're not safe yet." Alex swallowed his food and grabbed another slice of pizza. "We're not dead." Pietro was stunned. "How is that possible? No one can escape from President X. What happened?" Seeing Pietro's unstable emotions, Alex knew he had to explain things clearly, or they wouldn't be able to eat in peace. "Actually, it's nothing too complicated. President X still can't fully control the Scarlet Witch's power. Even though he used that power to massacre the prisoners in the mutant prison, his use of chaos magic is still crude. After I killed him, the chaos magic and mental energy tore a rift in reality. The entire military factory was affected, becoming a bizarre mirror world where time and space were chaotic. Opening any door would lead to a random place. This made both the dead and the living in that place mentally unstable. They became half-dead creatures. I can't explain exactly what that state is like, but you could think of them as zombies. They attack living things instinctively. But this also gave me a good opportunity. I took you out before the space in the factory was completely torn apart. To be honest, you were severely injured, so I forced another soldier who had escaped to give you a rough treatment. Alex paused and looked at Pietro. I admit his medical skills were terrible, but there was no way to get you to a hospital. He said your leg might heal crooked. I don't know much about medicine, so I can't be sure if he was right. Later, he tried to ambush me, and I shot him. So, even if you wanted to, you couldn't get back at him. Wait. Pietro couldn't help interrupting Alex, staring at him with wide eyes, his voice trembling. What did you say? You killed President X. How did you do it? Ah, right. Alex shrugged and took out a pistol from his pocket. With this. Remember? You stole it from me. It was my first gun, the one I used to kill Nick Fury. No, that's not what I mean. How did you manage to do it? That's President X. The entire Avengers couldn't take him down after years of trying. How did you do it? Honestly, I don't know. Alex turned his attention back to the road. Maybe he saw something interesting in my mind and got deeply absorbed, and then I shot him. Seriously, from another perspective, I can understand him. Just like that. Pietro couldn't believe it. Just like that. Alex nodded. What do you think? That I would suddenly unleash some unprecedented power at the brink of death, or discover I was a powerful mutant and fight him to a stalemate for 300 rounds, only for him to realize his mistakes at the last moment and let me kill him. Ah. Pietro had a lot to say but didn't know how to say it. That's how it is, Pietro. We're not comic book characters who need big scenes and epic battles to entertain an audience. We're just living beings in this sad world, just like President X. But it's too simple, Pietro muttered, still unable to understand how President X, who terrified the entire country, could be dealt with so easily. Simple? I don't think so. Maybe I'm the only one in this world who could kill President X this way. Alex said flatly, without any emotion. Hearing this, Pietro leaned towards the car door. Hey! I saw that. Are you afraid of me now? Alex rolled his eyes. No, I just wanted to change my position after sitting for so long. Pietro forced a stiff smile and then looked at his injured leg. His leg was splinted with 2 boards, wrapped in layers of bandages, once white but now soaked with blood, dried into a black stain. Seeing Pietro's gaze, Alex said, "You were badly injured. The soldier said your leg was broken by a massive force. The pain alone could have killed you, and such injuries usually can't be treated without amputation. But your abilities saved you. Yet, my accelerated metabolism heals me faster than normal. Right, but if your bones are broken, it doesn't help much. Your ability speeds up healing, but it doesn't set your bones. So, I had the soldier set your leg. Otherwise, it would have healed crooked. Thanks. No need to thank me, we're friends." Alex smiled. "You really don't want to eat? I remember you burnt a lot of calories. If it wasn't for the glucose in Nick Fury's safe house, I feared you'd die of hunger before waking up." Hearing this, Pietro finally took the pizza and started eating voraciously. His eating was messy, with only one hand free, but no one cared at this point. "Where are we heading next?" Pietro asked while eating. "The address you gave me, remember? 1407 Graymalkin Lane, Westchester. If I had known Professor X was in the mutant prison, we wouldn't have made this trip. We could have handled everything in New York." Alex grumbled, but he wasn't angry. Despite the strange and dangerous encounters along the way, it was over now. This experience would become an interesting memory in his life. Chapter 24. 1407 Graymalkin Lane. "How much longer until we reach New York?" Pietro asked, looking out at the rapidly retreating scenery. His previously tense heart was beginning to relax. "A few more hours. Honestly, I thought you would remain unconscious for a lot longer. I even planned to use some physical methods to wake you up if you weren't awake by the time we arrived," Alex said. "Hehe, I can imagine what your physical methods would be," Pietro chuckled, knowing it wouldn't be a gentle wake-up call. "Thankfully, he woke up in time. Seeing that Pietro had calmed down, Alex continued, "We should have reached New York by this morning, but somehow news of President X's death got out. Now the whole country is in turmoil. I had to avoid the war zones and take back roads to get to New York." War. Pietro was stunned. Yes, war. Initially, it was just gangs taking over cities and carving out territories. Then it escalated into a nationwide conflict, with even state governments and the military getting involved. I heard a gang attacked a military research base and discovered a project called Hulk. Hulk? What's that? Alex sighed. If you ask me, I'll tell you, in my memory, the Hulk in other worlds is an anti-hero with unparalleled destructive power after being exposed to gamma radiation. Initially a villain, he later joined the Avengers. But here, the terrifying gamma radiation turned him into a monstrous creature, causing his body to undergo grotesque mutations. He was eventually contained by the military and remained in a lab until those gang members released him. How could it come to this? Pietro murmured in disbelief. Who knows? From the moment I saw the X-Men girls become barmaids and the Avengers turn into a group led by a spoiled rich kid, I knew this world was heading for ruin, Alex said, glancing at a stack of files beside his leg. Perhaps those files contained the origins of everything, marking the beginning of this desperate world. The Fantastic Four were instrumental in the birth of the superhero era in this world. Though they weren't Marvel's first superheroes, they were the first real superhero team, opening the curtain for the superhero genre. In this world, they might be a crucial part of its tragic fate. The files included an old newspaper and interview materials featuring former astronaut Ben Grimm. He detailed unknown aspects of a space disaster. Years ago, he participated in a manned space mission where he met the genius scientist Reed Richards, along with Susan and Jonathan Storm. Reed was obsessed with space exploration and eager to unveil its mysteries. For him, Earth was too small, and everything in the universe was new and unknown to humans. He wanted to embark on a grand adventure to observe cosmic energy fluctuations. Although everything was ready, the spacecraft at that time was not stable enough for such a dangerous mission. But Reed couldn't wait. One night, Reed came to Ben's door, hoping Ben would support his dream and join him as a pilot for this great experiment. But Ben knew the spacecraft was too unstable. As an expert in space technology and satellites, he was aware of the dangers. If the machine failed, he couldn't guarantee anyone's survival. Ben decisively refused Reed's request, knowing it was too dangerous. However, what happened next filled Ben with regret. Reed didn't give up and went ahead with the plan, taking Susan, Jonathan, and another guy named Doom into space. They were soon engulfed by a cosmic radiation storm while observing energy fluctuations. The news of the disaster reached the engineering team, which spent massive resources searching for their whereabouts. Near the wreckage of their spacecraft, they found Susan and Jonathan. One was burned to a crisp, the other's cells were altered by cosmic energy. Susan's body could reflect light, making her invisible at any time, but this uncontrolled reflection rendered her blind. Shortly after recovering their bodies, Doom's remains were found. His body was in a constant state of change, fluctuating between minerals and living tissue due to severe radiation. Reed was the last to be found. His body had stretched like rubber and lay twisted on the icy ground. When discovered, he had become a grotesquely elongated skeleton. Ben felt deep guilt over the space disaster. If only he had convinced Reed to wait, or if he had piloted the mission, perhaps they would have become the real Fantastic Four. Alex sighed silently. This world might not have turned out this way, but he knew everything was a fact of the past. There was no turning back. Time passed, and Alex and Pietro finally reached their destination. 1407 Graymalkin Lane, a private estate. In the distance, an ancient castle came into view. Fortunately, this was in the outskirts of New York, a private estate with no one around. Otherwise, this building might have been destroyed by gangs. No wonder this address sounded familiar. This is Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, Alex said, stopping the car and looking up at the European castle. You know this place? Pietro asked, sitting in President X's wheelchair. Sort of. This should be the school founded by Professor X for mutant children to receive a better education. The teachers here were the first generation of X-Men, Alex explained, but soon sneered. Originally, this was a place where Professor X dreamed of building a bridge between humans and mutants. Now it's become a treasure trove of his spoils. How ironic. They walked to the front door, where a 6-digit code lock lit up. Leave it to me, Pietro said, wheeling over. I can test all the combinations. Okay, Alex nodded, knowing he wasn't good at such tasks. Pietro's fingers moved at a speed invisible to the naked eye, tapping the screen lightly to avoid breaking it with his speed. Don't worry, it'll only take a few seconds. Chapter 25. As you wish. It didn't take long, just 5 or 6 minutes before the castle's door slowly opened with a click, revealing an entrance for the two of them. See, I told you it wouldn't be hard, Pietro said excitedly, waving his hand and then looking back at Alex for approval. Well done. Now, let's get out of here. It won't be long before the war reaches us, Alex nodded slightly, expressing his approval of Pietro, then stepped inside. The interior of the castle was almost exactly as Alex had imagined. Apart from minor details, it was similar to the castles seen in films from his previous life. Almost all European castles had the same style of decor. However, Alex didn't know much about the differences in interior design styles and the specific cultural influences of castles from different countries. He hadn't studied that, so he could only softly marvel at the luxurious interior. Impressive. The castle seemed to have been neglected for a long time. It was filled with dirt, and many things were misplaced. The counters, which once held plants, now had only withered specimens covered in dust. The old paintings on the walls were draped in cobwebs. It seemed even President X hadn't returned here in a long time. Where are the items hidden? Alex surveyed the surroundings. Giant vases lined the corridor, acting more as bottle-shaped ornaments, each more than a person high. Everything is hidden at the bottom of the castle. It used to be a wine cellar but was converted into a large storage room by President X. The good news is that there are almost no obstacles down there. Maybe President X was too confident, he didn't set up any defenses around the collection. Of course, that was my experience back then. I'm not sure about now, Pietro explained. We'll find out soon enough, Alex said. The two of them moved quickly, not pausing on the way. Pietro led the way as they navigated the corridors. Alex felt a mix of emotions: excitement at the prospect of soon leaving this cursed world and worry that the time controller might not work or be broken. If that were the case, he might be trapped here forever. With these thoughts in mind, Alex had no interest in admiring the castle's interior. Under different circumstances, he would have explored thoroughly and taken a few valuable items. Walking through the dark, cold passage, they quickly arrived at an elevator inside the castle. Pietro, familiar with the controls, pressed the switch, and the elevator doors slowly opened. Let's hope there are no traps, Alex said, readying himself. With his Iron Man suit destroyed by President X, Alex could only rely on the pistol he carried. There shouldn't be, but if there are, I'll protect you with my life, Pietro said, giving Alex a thumbs up, though his current state made it hard for Alex to rely on him. The elevator moved, and they descended to the bottom floor, both tense and alert. Ding! The elevator's signal light turned green, and the doors opened, revealing a long corridor. As they stepped out, lights gradually illuminated the corridor section by section, from near to far, until the entire passage was lit. Alex and Pietro exchanged a glance, neither speaking. They stayed alert, ready for any situation, and moved forward. The corridor was made of smooth metal, a material Alex couldn't identify. It looked out of place for this era, resembling a bank vault. Impressive, right? I was shocked when I first came here. I thought I had entered an alien spaceship, Pietro said, moving his wheelchair forward. It's okay, Alex replied dismissively. Having seen many movies, he wasn't too surprised. The setting reminded him of the mutant base from the X-Men movies. Turning a corner in the corridor, they soon saw a metal door like a bank vault, with a large X symbol on it. This is it, Pietro said, stopping by the door and pointing to an intelligent lock that could be opened with a password, palm print, or retina scan. This time, Pietro took even less time. In just 10 seconds, the metal door emitted a harsh grinding sound and began to open. Indeed, this was the X-Men's base. In this world, however, it had been transformed by the insane President X into his private chamber, filled with various trophies. Each item could fetch a high price on the black market. Aside from useless items like the Darkhold and the Book of the Vishanti, Alex saw Captain America's shield with a hexagram, Iron Man's helmet, Hawkeye's bow and arrows, an unfinished Ant-Man suit by Hank Pym, and even Thor's hammer. In this world, there were two self-proclaimed Thors. One had joined the Avengers, wielding an indestructible hammer and claiming to be the real Thor. but he died in a Patriot missile strike. His hammer wasn't as legendary as told, the fact that it was kept here as a trophy proved it was a fake anyone could lift. The other Thor had founded the Thor cult, but he was executed publicly by law enforcement cracking down on cults. In this world, those who claimed to use magic, sorcery, or divine power rarely met a good end. Here, Alex, what you're looking for is here, Pietro called from a nearby cabinet as Alex was absorbed in observing the items. Hearing this, Alex immediately stopped pondering these items and walked over to Pietro. Following Pietro's direction, Alex saw a device about the size of a tablet with an orange clock engraved on the back, identical to Miss Minutes from his memory. This is it. Alex's eyes gleamed as he quickly picked up the time controller and started tapping on it. As his fingers touched it, the device lit up, and the screen displayed an image of Miss Minutes, the animated character. However, unlike the Miss Minutes from the Loki series in his memory, this one slowly opened her eyes, and her pupils turned towards Alex, her gaze cold and eerie, sending a shiver down his spine. Failure. Error. Miss Minutes' mouth moved, emitting a series of strange, unintelligible noises like an old radio's static, a language from another planet, or a phrase played backward. Miss Minutes, take us away from here, Alex said, feeling a tightness in his chest. If this thing was really broken, all his previous efforts would have been in vain. After he spoke, the chaotic noises from Miss Minutes abruptly stopped. Her eyes seemed to show a hint of human emotion. How Alex and Pietro could sense emotion in an animated character's eyes was beyond them. Do you know me? Miss Minutes finally spoke a coherent sentence. It wasn't any particular language but a sound like bioelectric waves that any intelligent creature could understand. Yes, I know you. Take me away from here, Alex said seriously, holding the time controller. Miss Minutes stared blankly at Alex as if trying to comprehend his words or perhaps processing information too slowly. Seeing this, Alex urged again, I know you can open the time portal. Quickly, take us away from this world. Alex frowned deeply. He had never encountered such a situation before, and Pietro remained silent, not daring to interrupt, though he wanted to. After an indeterminate amount of time, Miss Minutes reacted. She pulled a stiff smile if it could be called that. Suddenly, a purple barrier rapidly expanded from under Alex and Pietro's feet. As you wish.